Chapter 1773. Zhao Fu did not care about what others thought of him and focused on collecting food and disaster pearls. A few days later, another problem occurred in the outer world. There was a large wave of cockroach-like insects heading towards Great Qin's territory from the west, and there were roughly 5 billion of them. Just thinking about such a large wave of cockroaches crawling on the ground could cause anyone to feel terrified. Now that the Heaven-awakened world was on good terms, there was no need to station a large number of soldiers there. As such, Zhao Fu led some soldiers to the outer world and increased the number of soldiers there to 5 billion. After arriving there, the cockroach insect beasts had not attacked yet. Zhao Fu stood on the city walls as the soldiers hurriedly prepared to defend. Rumble, soon, waves of cockroaches and insects swarmed towards Great Qin's side. Each of them was 1 meter long, and they were so densely packed that they covered the ground like a dark red carpet as they rushed towards Great Qin's side. Looking at those countless cockroach insect beasts, Zhao Fu felt quite disgusted. They were far more terrifying than he had expected. These cockroach insect beasts were incredibly fast, and they would soon reach him. Luckily, they could not fly, or else things would be quite troublesome. Fire! After giving the order, arrows containing immense power shot out, drawing out arcs in the air and descending like rain. The cockroaches and insect beasts were all hit by the arrows, causing green liquid to fly everywhere, looking quite nauseating. Even though these cockroach insect beasts could not fly, their life force seemed to be quite powerful. Some of them had a few arrows stuck in their bodies, but they were still able to run, and their speed was greatly reduced. Soon, the cockroach insect beasts reached the traps. Because the situation in the outer world was quite dangerous, Qin had set up many traps around the stronghold, and he mainly focused on defense instead of attacking. As the cockroach insect beasts charged forwards, the ground continuously caved in, creating a ravine that was dozens of meters wide and hundreds of meters deep. There were sharp spikes at the bottom, and countless cockroach insect beasts fell from above, their bodies pierced by the spikes. These cockroach insect beasts' life force was quite powerful, and even after being pierced by the spikes and causing liquid to flow out, they did not immediately die. Their legs were still moving, trying to break free. The sudden appearance of the traps caused many cockroach insect beasts to fall, causing the bottom of the ravine to be covered with a layer of cockroach insect beasts. This forced the flood of cockroach insect beasts to stop. Xiao. Great Qin's side grasped this opportunity and continuously shot out arrows. The densely packed arrows gave off an incredibly sharp aura as they once again poured down like a torrential rain. Puff, 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 arrows rained down, hitting the backs of the insect beasts, causing green liquid to splatter everywhere. Some of the insect beasts were nailed to the ground and struggled. The situation was quite advantageous for Great Qin's side. The ravines blocked off countless insects, making it impossible for them to charge over. Great Qin's arrows could also hit them, making it so that they could not retaliate. However, they quickly found a way to deal with it. They spat out streams of green liquid from their mouths. This liquid was extremely corrosive, and when it sprayed onto the walls of the ravine, it quickly dissolved and collapsed. The collapsed rocks filled up the ravine by quite a bit and buried the spikes. The many cockroach insect beasts climbed down the walls before climbing back up. The straight walls did not pose any resistance to them. Zhao Fu did not have to worry about this because these cockroach insect beasts were not very intelligent. No matter what method Qin used, they would not be able to think of a way to deal with it. Facing the ferocious onslaught of cockroach insect beasts, Zhao Fu summoned 3,000 or so insect den wyverns. The smallest of the 3,000 or so insect den wyverns was 1,000 meters long, and they flapped their wings, giving off a massive dragon's might. They opened their mouths, and countless terrifying lights came out. Boom, boom, boom. Massive beams of light containing destructive power quickly shot forwards, and they were unstoppable. A chain of explosions sounded out, causing countless insect beast bodies to explode and causing liquid to fly everywhere. The 3,000 insect den wyverns looked like a small number, but their destructive power was shocking. A single beam of light shot into the densely packed insect beasts and could kill tens of thousands of them. A single insect den wyvern could kill tens of thousands, 10 insect den wyverns could kill hundreds of thousands, and 3,000 insect den wyverns could kill tens of millions of them. This was a huge blow to the insect beasts that were charging at the front. The insect beasts' imposing manner that seemed to be able to sweep through everything weakened. However, the large number of insect beasts still ferociously charged at Sheen. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound of insect wings flapping could be heard. Among the insect swarm, cockroaches that were thousands of meters long flapped their wings and flew up. There were 6,000 or 7,000 of them, and they opened their mouths and spat out streams of green liquid towards the walls. Sheen's side hurriedly defended, using defensive barriers to block the green liquid. Some of the liquid directly corroded the defensive barriers and landed on the soldiers' bodies. The soldiers' equipment was quickly corroded, and they gave off pained cries and a pungent smell. When the liquid landed on the walls, it sizzled and gave off black smoke. It melted a large hole in the walls, and the scene was quite terrifying. Zhao Fu had underestimated the cockroach insect beasts. Looking at the massive insect beasts flying in the sky, Zhao Fu had the insect den wyverns rush over. The ordinary insect beasts were too weak and could not attack the insect den wyverns. The massive cockroach insect beasts were not to be outdone and gave off massive auras as they rushed out, fighting with Sheen's insect den wyverns in the sky. The battle was incredibly intense. An insect den wyvern leapt onto an insect beast body and opened its massive mouth, biting down on the insect beast body. It swung its head and tore off a large piece of flesh, causing green liquid to fly everywhere and causing the insect beast to howl in pain. A massive insect den wyvern stared an insect den wyvern and gave off ferocious power as it flew over incredibly quickly. It was like a black blur as it sent the insect den wyvern flying. An insect den wyvern spun its body, and its massive tail gave off shocking power as it whipped the cockroach insect den wyvern. The cockroach insect den wyvern flew back, and its carapace caved in, while the insect den wyvern gave off a terrifying aura as it continued to rush over. Another cockroach insect den wyvern looked at the insect den wyvern cruelly and opened its mouth and spat out a stream of liquid that landed on the insect den wyvern's body, corroding its body. The insect den wyvern gave off a pained roar and shot out a beam of light that pierced through the insect den wyvern's body. Chapter 1774. The insect den wyverns had a great advantage in terms of power and defense. Even though there were fewer of them than the insect beasts, they did not lose to the massive group of cockroaches. The two sides fought in the sky, resulting in massive sounds and wild gales. The countless cockroach insect beasts flooded towards Sheen like a flood. At that moment, green vines shot out of the ground and bound up the insect beasts. The vines stretched out sharp spikes and stabbed into the insect beast bodies, causing them to hiss in pain. The vines quickly devoured the insect beast's life force, and the cockroach insect beast life force was incredibly powerful, making the vines even more excited. However, there were simply too many insect beasts, and the vines could only bind some of them. Even more insect beasts crawled past them and continued to rush towards Sheen. Swish, 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 arrows were shot out one after another. However, normal arrows were not very effective against these insects, so this time, the arrows that were shot were flaming arrows. Countless fire arrows descended like a rain of fire, falling amongst the cockroach insect beasts. The fire arrows hit the cockroach insect beasts' backs, causing them to be scorched, causing countless insect beasts to howl in pain. This wave of fire arrows killed many cockroach insect beasts, causing them to give off a pungent smell. Some of their corpses even started to burn. Because the vines were also afraid of fire, the fire arrows only hit the insect beasts in the distance and did not attack the insect beasts near Sheen. There was no need for Qin's soldiers to attack. The fire arrows split open the distance between the insect beasts at the front and the insect beasts at the back. By now, the countless vines had already devoured an insect beast, causing them to become even thicker and more ferocious, and they attacked the insect beasts that had entered their attack range. The insect beasts at the front were bound up by the vines, and their life force was once again forcefully absorbed. Without even needing Qin to attack, the insect beasts were devoured to death. However, even more insect beasts gave off powerful auras as they rushed towards Qin's walls. There were still many of them. Moreover, some of the larger cockroaches opened their mouths and spat out a green liquid that could reach the defensive walls. This liquid was incredibly corrosive, and they could not be careless. The soldiers could only use their shields to defend, or else their bodies would be corroded. Great Qin calmly used arrows to attack while defending against the green liquid. The insect tide came closer and closer to Great Qin, and it seemed like it was about to launch an all-out attack. When that time came, Qin would have to face the ferocious flood of insect beasts. The situation would be quite dangerous, and many soldiers would die. At that moment, Zhao Fu ordered the Desolate God to lead people to attack. The Desolate God brought the 12 god emissaries and appeared in the sky. Countless rays of blood-red light shot out, dyeing the sky blood-red. 12 blood-red figures appeared behind them before turning into rays of light and landing on the ground. The 12 blood orbs lined up and gave off an incredibly powerful suction force. Green blood was sucked out of the corpses of the cockroaches and insects, forming a massive green tide that flowed towards the 12 blood orbs. They were much larger than before because the blood god demons' power came from their blood. The more creatures they killed, the more blood they would obtain, and the more powerful the blood god demons would become. This time, it was much larger than before because the blood god demons' power came from their blood. The more creatures they killed, the more blood they would be able to provide, and the more powerful the blood god demons would be. Before, Qin's attacks had killed at least 1 billion insect beasts, and with such a massive number of corpses, the amount of blood the blood god demons provided was also massive. In the sky, the 12 god messengers stretched out their hands towards the 12 blood orbs, and countless incantations appeared on their arms as a strange power spread out. The tens of thousands of meters wide green blood orbs gave off a green light and continuously changed, turning into 12 massive green cockroach insect beasts. Their eyes were blood-red crystals, and their bodies were in a liquid state. Roar! 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 The 12 massive green cockroach insect beasts gave off massive roars towards the sky, and a corporeal sound wave spread out, shaking the heavens and earth. A massive aura flooded out, causing countless creatures to fall into terror. Sensing the aura of the 12 tens of thousands of meters wide cockroach insect beasts, the ferocious insect tide could not help but pause. Bang! 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 The 12 massive insect beasts started to attack the blood god demons. The 12 cockroach insect beasts gave off destructive power, and they were like 12 mountains as they rushed forwards incredibly quickly. The insect beasts were sent flying, and they were unable to resist at all. They were swept away like sand and pebbles, and some were even crushed into meat paste by the massive green insect beasts. The ground was dyed green, and the rotten flesh and organs were quite disgusting. Facing the massive green insect beast that could destroy everything, the insect tide gave off waves of dark red aura. The aura continuously condensed and formed 8 massive dark red cockroach insect beasts. Their bodies were not corporeal and were instead formed from dark red aura. Their bodies gave off a dark red aura and gave off a massive aura, making people feel terror. Bang! 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 The 8 dark red cockroach insect beasts gave off terrifying auras as they rushed at the 12 green insect beasts. Their bodies were more than twice the size of the green insect beasts, and as they clashed together, massive explosions sounded out. A terrifying shock wave spread out, causing the ground to instantly collapse. A massive gale spread out, and sand and pebbles flew everywhere. The nearby cockroach insect beasts were also affected. Some of the closest cockroach insect beasts were directly crushed by the shockwave, causing green liquid to splatter everywhere. The further cockroach insect beasts were directly blown away by the strong wind. The battle between the insect beasts was incredibly intense, and massive explosions sounded out as gusts of wind swept out. The other ordinary cockroach insect beasts once again charged towards Qin City's city walls, giving off massive auras as they charged over. The 12 god emissaries controlled the 12 green cockroach insect beasts in the sky, leaving 8 to stall the dark red insect beasts while the remaining 4 charged into the insect tide and madly slaughtered. They continuously charged about, sending countless insect beasts flying away or crushing them into meat paste. None of the insect beasts could stop them. In front of the massive green insect beasts, the insect beasts were like a plate of loose sand that could be defeated in a single blow. Swish, swish, swish. Chapter 1775. Many cockroach bug beasts were bound by the green vines, and they struggled with all their might. However, the vines shot out spikes that stabbed into the bug beasts' bodies and devoured their life force. The bug beasts quickly died, and their bodies dried up as if they were dehydrated. Swish, swish, swish. Cheenside once again shot out countless arrows. The arrows contained immense force as they descended, piercing through the cockroach bug beasts' bodies. Blood flew everywhere as the bug beasts howled in pain. Bang! Suddenly, a massive stream of green liquid containing immense power shot over from the distance and hit Great Qin's defensive walls. The defensive walls sizzled as a massive hole was corroded, and some of the soldiers who were hit by the liquid didn't even have time to cry out before their bodies and armor were completely corroded. A massive aura flooded out as a massive figure appeared in front of everyone. It was a 10,000-meter long dark red cockroach, and it flapped its wings as it flew at a low altitude. It was the insect beast king. Zhao Fu immediately turned into a ray of light and shot towards the enormous insect beast, appearing in front of it in the next second. The enormous insect beast looked at the little guy in front of it and opened its mouth as it bit towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu took out the Emperor Killing Sword and lightly cried out, "Sword Master." A massive storm of sword chi spread out as Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out. A massive sword light containing an incredibly sharp aura slashed towards the enormous insect beast king. Bang! The enormous insect beast king was sent flying, resulting in a massive sound as a shallow wound appeared on its head. The insect beast king furiously roared and gave off a terrifying aura as it smashed toward Zhao Fu. It gave off a massive aura of suppression and an intense wind. Zhao Fu was unable to dodge, so he could only send large amounts of power into the Emperor Killing Sword. The Emperor Killing Sword gave off an intense sword light, and an incredibly sharp aura spread out, causing a massive storm of sword chi to spread out. Boom! The massive insect beast king gave off a terrifying aura as it spun over, and Zhao Fu also ferociously slashed out. The two attacks collided, resulting in a massive explosion and a massive gale. Zhao Fu was sent flying back tens of meters, and his arm felt numb. The insect beast was sent back tens of meters, and there was another wound on its head. This one was bigger than the one before, and blood kept flowing out. The insect beast king furiously shrunk its head before stretching out and spitting out a massive amount of green liquid toward Zhao Fu. The green liquid gave off immense power and was incredibly fast. Zhao Fu dodged to the side, evading the attack. However, the green liquid once again smashed into Qin's city walls with immense force, once again corroding a large crater. Damn it! Seeing this, Zhao Fu inwardly cursed and gave off immense power as he slashed towards the massive insect beast king. On the other side, the insect army had finally reached Great Qin's defensive walls and started to attack. Countless cockroaches and insects climbed up the defensive walls and quickly attacked the top of the defensive walls. Qin's side counterattack, continuously shooting out arrows and shooting down the insect beasts climbing up the city walls. The soldiers also sent out sword lights and saber lights, cutting down small groups of insect beasts. In the face of this kind of flat insect that could climb walls, heavy objects did not have much of an effect. Arrows continuously shot out, and countless soldiers slashed out saber lights and sword lights, forming sharp ribbons of light that cut the insect beasts climbing up the city walls in half. The cockroach insect beasts also sprayed out green liquid and attacked Qin's soldiers, corroding Qin's soldiers' armor and bodies. The countless green vines on the ground quickly shot out and bound up the insect beasts. Their spikes quickly stabbed out and devoured their life force, causing the insect beasts to howl and continuously struggle in pain. The many massive insect beasts vigorously clashed and tore at the insect beasts, while the 4 green insect beasts continued to fearlessly charge out, sending the surrounding insect beasts flying or crushing them into meat paste. The wyverns and insect beasts fought in the sky, continuously biting and clashing, spraying out green liquid and shooting out powerful beams of light, killing each other. The battle was incredibly intense, and the two sides desperately killed each other. Roars and cries continuously sounded out, and blood flew everywhere. Corpses covered the ground, creating a shocking scene. On the other side, the battle between Zhao Fu and the Insect Beast King was just as intense. The Insect Beast King once again used its massive body to smash towards Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu slashed out with all of his strength, slashing the Insect Beast King back to the ground. Rumble. The ground continuously trembled as countless rocks shot out, and a shockwave sounded out as the Insect Beast King's body smashed open a large crater in the ground. The Insect Beast King furiously sprayed out a green liquid, which contained immense force and a pungent smell as it shot towards Zhao Fu. This time, Zhao Fu did not dodge, and he took out the Sin Dragon Sword and sent large amounts of power into it. He vigorously slashed out, and a massive water dragon gave off immense power as it slammed towards the green liquid. Bang! An explosion sounded out as the green liquid and water dragon collided, resulting in a massive explosion. Countless drops of green liquid and water shot everywhere. When the water landed on the ground, it was fine, but when the green liquid landed on the ground, it immediately corroded and opened up holes. The Insect Beast King furiously gave off a powerful aura as it leapt into the sky, causing the ground to collapse. The Insect Beast King opened its massive mouth and once again bit toward Zhao Fu. Boom! Before Zhao Fu could even attack, a black spear containing terrifying sharpness shot towards the Insect Beast King's body, causing it to howl. Seeing that Zhao Fu had not dealt with the Insect Beast King yet, Erisina went up to help. As the god of fallen angel, Erisina's cultivation was much higher than Zhao Fu's. Zhao Fu was only a great earth realm cultivator, and he was so powerful because of his various powers. With Erisina joining in, it would be much easier to deal with the Insect Beast King. After being attacked by Erisina, the Insect Beast King furiously charged at her and opened its black hole-like mouth as it bit towards Erisina. At that moment, Zhao Fu vigorously slashed out, sending out 3 massive water dragons that sent the Insect Beast King flying. Erisina held the Darkness God Sword and sent large amounts of darkness energy into it, causing it to give off a terrifying black sword light as she vigorously slashed out. Shing! A massive sword hum sounded out as a massive black crescent containing immense darkness energy slashed into the Insect Beast King's left side, opening up a massive gash and causing blood to spurt out. Chapter 1776. After the Insect King died, the orderly insect horde became chaotic. They had been withstanding Qin's berserk attacks and were unable to hold on any longer, so the Insect King was their final hope. However, now that this hope was gone, the Insect King could not hold on any longer. Seeing countless of their comrades die, they started to run in terror. Great Qin's side continued to ferociously attack. Arrows containing immense power tore through the air, drawing out arcs in the air as they shot into the insect horde, killing them one by one. Vines continuously stretched out and bound up the escaping insect beasts. Their spikes stabbed into the insect beasts' bodies and devoured their life force. As the insect horde retreated, the massive dark red cockroach insect beast collapsed, and the 12 green cockroach insect beasts once again started to fearlessly attack, sending insect beasts flying or crushing them into meat paste. The massive cockroach insect beasts in the sky could not defeat the insect den wyverns, and they started to quickly run. Because they could fly, they were much faster than ordinary insect beasts, and they soon disappeared. Bang! 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 The insect den wyverns in the sky opened their mouths and shot out powerful beams of light that contained destructive power. They caused a chain of explosions within the insect horde, killing countless insect beasts. Now, the massive army of insect beasts was once again heavily injured, and countless insect beasts had died. The remaining insect beasts started to run in terror. After chasing for a while, Qin stopped and won this battle. The ground was covered with insect beasts' corpses, and the green liquid turned the ground green and gave off a dense, pungent smell. Zhao Fu had a portion of the soldiers clean up the battlefield, while the rest followed him and quickly headed to the cockroach insect Denver. A few hours later, Zhao Fu and his people arrived. There were large craters in the ground, and there were dark red insect eggs as big as watermelons around them. There were also dark red crystals at the center, which were dens. Zhao Fu felt quite delighted as he looked at the large number of dens. There were at least 700 to 800 of them, which would allow Qin to have another 700 to 800 insect den wyverns. In that case, Qin would have around 4,000 insect den wyverns. The insect den wyverns had just displayed their power, and they were incredibly terrifying. They were definitely one of Qin's most powerful methods. If there were 10,000 of them, they would be able to blast the alchemy world's saint beasts and cause great damage. There were still many insect beasts within the dens, and seeing Qin's soldiers, they rushed out and started to attack Qin. Great Qin's side formed a defensive formation and shot out arrows, attacking the insects in an orderly manner. They were able to easily destroy the insects, as their main force had long since been destroyed by Great Qin. Only a small portion of the insects remained. After dealing with the insect beast, Zhao Fu ordered people to move the insect nest away, as well as the insect eggs in the crater. There were many insect eggs here, and they were densely scattered all around. There could be hundreds of millions of them, but they were quite small and not as powerful as ordinary insect eggs. However, with so many insect eggs casting insect curses, it was quite terrifying. After moving the stone nest, Zhao Fu and Qin's soldiers returned to Qin City with satisfaction. After returning to Qin's side, Zhao Fu saw that they had cleaned up the battlefield. He asked Erisina, "Did Qin's side suffer a lot of losses?" Erisina gave a trace of a smile as she replied, "It's not a lot, only a few tens of millions. However, killing 3.5 billion insects is already quite shocking. Moreover, after killing so many insects, Qin has obtained a massive amount of points." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. Luckily, their losses were not great, and they had gained quite a lot this time. Zhao Fu went to the exchange stone steel and found that Qin had a massive amount of points, which was 1/3 of the Tao-seeking stone's points. Now, Qin was only 2/3 away from being able to exchange for the Tao-seeking stone. When that time came, there would only be one thing left. Qin would be able to forge a heaven and earth divine tool, and the Spirit Maiden would be able to devour the consciousnesses of other worlds and continuously become stronger. "Are you done with what you need to do?" Erisina came to Zhao Fu's side and said to Zhao Fu in an alluring voice. Zhao Fu understood what she meant and lightly smiled as he hugged her. After chatting with the women for a while, Zhao Fu planned to leave the chaotic world. However, at that moment, a soldier came to report that the research lab was looking for him. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused. The research lab in the chaotic world Sheen territory was mainly responsible for researching the insect beast's weaknesses and how to kill insects faster. Could it be that they had made some unexpected gains this time? Feeling quite confused, Zhao Fu came to the research lab. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Seeing Zhao Fu arrive, the scholars who were researching all bowed and greeted him. Zhao Fu nodded and said, "Did you discover anything?" A middle-aged man came up and bowed before replying, "Your Majesty, please come and take a look." Zhao Fu followed the middle-aged man to a table. There was a pea-sized stone on the table, and it gave off a dense aura of life. "What is this?" Zhao Fu asked curiously. The middle-aged man replied, "Your Majesty, this is something that we discovered within the bodies of those cockroaches. It contains quite a bit of life energy, and it's most likely something that the cockroaches nurtured from attacking the insect beasts. Every cockroach insect beast has it. If this stone is slightly modified, it should be able to form a type of health potion." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. Qin had killed at least 4 billion cockroaches, which would allow him to obtain a large amount of health potions. However, this was something that had been condensed by the insect beasts in the chaos world. Would it be effective on Qin? Would it reject him? Zhao Fu asked this question, and the middle-aged man replied, "Your Majesty, it's quite easy to create health potions. The method to create health potions is quite simple, and we're currently researching how to combine that type of life energy so that Great Qin can use it." If it was this question, Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed and replied, "All right, I got it. Continue to research and let me know if there's any progress." The middle-aged man nodded and nodded. Zhao Fu returned to Qin. Because it hadn't taken him too long to deal with the insect beasts, there wasn't much to do after returning to Qin. At that moment, Zhao Fu thought about it and felt that he could understand the current situation of the people. Many things had happened recently, including the attack from the alchemy world, the decline of the heaven and earth source, which caused a decrease in food production, and all sorts of natural disasters. Chapter 1777. Zhao Fu changed into ordinary clothes and planned to go to some remote regions to see the situation in Qin City. Seeing it with his own eyes would be more realistic than reporting it. The first place he went to was a mountain village, and the county that the mountain village was in had experienced a flood. Zhao Fu wanted to see for himself what the situation was like. After the flood, the village had been cleared of mud, and they were clearing the mud from the fields so that they could continue to plant crops. Zhao Fu, a stranger, had come to their village, causing them to look over. They were quite curious as to why this young man had come to their small village. Even though he looked ordinary, his aura was extraordinary, and ordinary people could not compare to him. An elderly man with some white hair and a sturdy body came up and smiled as he said, "Sir, what business do you have with our village?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I don't have much to do and just wanted to take a look. I happened to pass by this village, so I came to take a look." The village chief happily laughed as he said, "Is that so? Our village is just a poor village. What's there to see? I thought you were an official from the imperial court who came to inspect." Zhao Fu looked quite surprised. He looked at his ordinary clothes and felt that there was nothing special about them. He asked curiously, "Sir, how did you know that I was an official from the imperial court?" The village chief smiled as he said, "From your aura, I can tell that you're not an ordinary person. You're very different from us villagers, and apart from the imperial court who occasionally sends people to inspect our village, there are basically no outsiders." Zhao Fu understood and smiled as he asked, "How do you feel about the imperial court sending people to inspect your village? Also, are they nice to you? Do they care about your opinions?" The village chief happily replied, "Of course we welcome them. We're doing this to show our gratitude to His Majesty. It was His Majesty's order that the various counties did this. Otherwise, a small village like ours might have been overlooked. As for the people who came, they were nice to us. They were not arrogant or looked down on us, and they reported our matter to the county magistrates. After some time, the matter will be resolved." "Oh." Zhao Fu nodded and then asked, "After the flood, do you have any opinions or dissatisfaction with the imperial court?" Hearing this, the village chief's smile became a bit dimmer. He looked around and said in a small voice, "Sir, the question you asked is very dangerous. It's better not to ask this kind of question so as not to cause any trouble." Zhao Fu asked curiously, "Why is that?" The village chief had a smile on his face, but his expression was a bit serious. "Because the content of your question is a bit sensitive. You can say what you think, but if you are dissatisfied, there is a possibility of rebellion. This matter can be big or small. You might say that it's not a big deal, but if you cause chaos or take the lead in causing trouble, you will definitely be beheaded. Even your family and friends will be severely punished. Moreover, His Majesty has also specially selected representatives of the public and will also send people down to patrol. If you have any opinions or questions, you can talk to them. However, try to talk to others about your dissatisfaction with the court." This time, the imperial court solved the flood very quickly, and the imperial court distributed some food and seeds. Now, we have no opinions, and we are very grateful to the imperial court and His Majesty. After hearing this, Zhao Fu fell in a deep thought. Zhao Fu didn't know that those who expressed their dissatisfaction and caused trouble would be beheaded, and even their family and friends would be severely punished. This order might have been given by Li Si, or he might have reported it to Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu didn't care, because this was a small way to stabilize Qin's rule. There were many other ways. Now that Qin had opened up many battlefields and faced countless enemies, there couldn't be any internal problems in Qin. Otherwise, if there were internal and external troubles, Qin might be destroyed. As such, the imperial court had to take some high-pressure measures to stabilize the people's hearts. Now that he knew about this, Zhao Fu didn't intend to change this policy, because it was indeed useful to Qin. However, to Zhao Fu, he had a new understanding of Qin, because Qin was not as good as he had imagined. There were no restrictions, and the people could live freely and happily. Of course, such a place did not exist in the world. If one wanted something, one had to pay the price. The world needed rules, and so did countries. "Sir, you must be a high-ranking official in the imperial court, right?" the village chief said as he smiled respectfully. Zhao Fu came back to his senses and smiled as he said, "Didn't I tell you? I'm not an official." The village chief smiled as he said, "Sir, you don't need to explain. Ordinary people wouldn't ask these questions. Moreover, from your aura, definitely not an ordinary official." Zhao Fu didn't explain much and smiled. The village chief felt quite delighted and understood that Zhao Fu had tacitly acknowledged his identity. His smile became even more brilliant as he said, "Sir, it's already noon. How about we have lunch at my house?" Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "No need. I have some things to do, so I'll be going now." The village chief quickly grabbed Zhao Fu and said, "Sir, you don't need to be so polite. Even if you're busy, you have to have lunch." Zhao Fu felt quite helpless as he went to the village chief's house. As soon as the village chief got home, he yelled, "Old woman, quickly kill the hen in my house. A noble has come to my house. Also, little Nyo, get out of here." Hearing this, the old woman came out and saw the village chief smile. She understood that it was important, so she didn't say anything. She grabbed a chicken and walked into the kitchen. At this moment, a dignified little boy ran out and said discontentedly, "Grandpa, why did you call me?" The village chief smiled as he said, "Come here. Greet this lord. He's a high-ranking official in the imperial court. Do you want to be an official in the future? Do you want to work for Qin? Do you want to see His Majesty?" Hearing this, the little boy immediately ran over in surprise and smiled as he said, "Sir, hello." Zhao Fu understood what the village chief was thinking. He had brought him here for his grandson's future. However, Zhao Fu did not dislike it and could understand it, so he smiled and nodded. Following this, the village chief led Zhao Fu to the table in the living room and asked with a smile, "Sir, may I know your name? What's your position in the imperial court?" Zhao Fu lightly smiled as he replied, "My surname is Zhao, and I'm just a low-ranking official in Xianyang." Chapter 1778. The boy next to him looked at Zhao Fu with admiration as he said excitedly, "Sir, did you come from the Qin Empire's capital, Xianyang? I heard that it's quite prosperous and has everything. That's right. Do you know what His Majesty looks like? Zhao Fu smiled as he replied. Xian Yang is quite prosperous and lively, but His Majesty looks quite ordinary. The boy looked quite disbelieving and said with a trace of anger, Sir, you can't say that. Our Majesty is the greatest majesty in the world. Not only is he incredibly handsome, but his aura is also mighty and domineering. No one is as noble as him. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, Since you know, why are you asking me? The boy said embarrassedly, I've heard about this from others, and I've never seen His Majesty. I believe that His Majesty is even more mighty and domineering than the legends say. Seeing that his grandson and Zhao Fu were chatting, the village chief said, Sir, I'm very curious. The boy looked at his grandson and Zhao Fu with a pair of innocent eyes and said, Sir, can you please take a look at my grandson's talent and see if he has the potential to become a general in the Qin Empire? The boy looked at Zhao Fu with a pair of innocent eyes and said, I'll have to trouble you, sir. I want to be like my father and join the Qin Empire's army and serve the Qin Empire. I want to work hard to become a general and give my grandparents and mother a good life. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and smiled as he asked, Is your father in the army? Have you become a general yet? Hearing this, the boy's eyes became moist, and the village chief sighed, seeming to have aged. Zhao Fu understood something. Qin had opened up many battlefields, facing the heaven-awakened world, outer world, underworld, and alchemy world. It was impossible for there to be no sacrifices, and every victory or defeat would cost the lives of many soldiers and generals. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu's heart sank. Who knew how many people's families would be torn apart by this battle? Families would be torn apart, and people would have to send off their children. However, could war be avoided? Even if Great Qin did not attack others, others would attack Great Qin. War was unavoidable, and even submitting was useless. After all, there would be other factions attacking the factions that you submitted to. War was unavoidable. When the war began, there would definitely be deaths. Families would be destroyed, wives and children would be separated, families would be separated, people would be destitute, people would not be able to fill their stomachs, and things like old people sending off their children would happen. It was unavoidable. If they wanted to avoid war forever, there was only one way, and that was to achieve unification, just like how Qin unified the 6 states in the past. Thinking about that, Zhao Fu became more resolute and smiled as he patted the boy's head. He sent a trace of power into the boy's body and found that the boy's talent was quite good. He smiled and said, Your aptitude is not bad, and you might become a commander in the future. However, your father has already died in battle. Do you still want to be like him? You might even die on the battlefield. According to Qin's laws, the imperial court gives you preferential treatment. You don't have to join the army, and you can live a peaceful life without fighting and being in danger. If you die, what will happen to your mother and grandparents? The village head's eyes flickered with tears, and his voice was a bit hoarse as he said, Young master, you're right. You're right. I've been trying to persuade my grandson, but he insists on being like his father. I also know that Great Qin's peace and prosperity, where we don't have to worry about food and clothing, and our happy and comfortable lives were bought with the lives of countless soldiers. I support my grandson's decision to join Great Qin's army. I experienced that chaotic and dark age. At that time, this small village belonged to a small faction called the Eastern State. At that time, factions constantly fought against each other, and the war never stopped. Wails could be heard everywhere, and blood dyed the earth red. Ordinary people had no food to fill their stomachs, were homeless, and were even slaughtered. It was Qin Empire that unified and ended that chaotic and dark age. That's why we have such a life now. If we don't want this comfortable life to be destroyed, we have to protect it. The little boy's eyes were firm as he said seriously, I also want to protect Qin Empire like my father did. I will realize my father's unrealistic dream for him. Zhao Fu looked at the grandfather and grandson seriously, and he felt a huge responsibility and pressure in his heart. They were his people, and they trusted and supported him so much. How could he let them down? By now, Zhao Fu deeply understood that even though he was a supreme existence in Great Qin and countless people looked up to him, no one dared to go against his orders, and he enjoyed the greatest power. He was still a great Qin lord. At the same time, he bore the hopes of all the people in Qin Empire. He was responsible for their safety, life, and future because he was the emperor of Qin Empire, Qin's majesty. Zhao Fu's gaze became resolute, and he understood his responsibilities. Since he was in this position, he had to bear the weight of the emperor. A formless emperor's aura spread out, causing the grandfather and grandson's hearts to tremble. They felt as if they wanted to kneel and worship the person in front of them. This was instinctively the highest form of respect for a king. Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and gave off a natural emperor's aura, seeming incredibly close and distant as he said, "In actuality, talent isn't that important because Great Qin has the talent orb. As long as you're willing to work hard, you'll definitely be able to achieve your dreams. I can promise you that. There's also this command medallion. Take it, and you'll be able to go to the Rising Qin Academy to study. You don't have to worry about school fees and living expenses." The village chief looked at Zhao Fu in shock. Even though he didn't know much, he knew that the Rising Qin Academy was the #1 academy in Qin, and only the most talented people could go there to study. Ordinary nobles would not be able to enter no matter how hard they fought. Now, as long as one took this person's command medallion, they would be able to enter the Rising Qin Academy without any fees. It seemed that this person's status in Xianyang City was quite extraordinary. Looking at the token, it was a black gold dragon token, which meant that it was made of black gold. A ferocious and domineering black dragon was carved on it. Needless to say, just this token alone was worth a lot of money. The village chief quickly came to his senses and patted the boy's head as he said, "Hurry, hurry and pay your respects to Sir and thank this Sir." The boy covered his head, feeling a bit angry. However, looking at his grandfather, he felt that this command medallion was quite valuable, so he obediently knelt and kowtowed as he said, "Thank you, Sir, for your reward." Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Get up. I hope you'll work hard in the future and don't let me down." Chapter 1779. Zhao Fu stood up and smiled as he said, "That's great. I still have some matters to take care of, so I'll be leaving first." The village chief hurriedly stood up, wanting to stop Zhao Fu. After all, this was someone who had done their family a great favor, so they had to properly thank him. However, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and shot out of the door, disappearing over the horizon. The little boy said in amazement, "Grandpa, that lord can even fly. He's so powerful." Seeing that he could not stop Zhao Fu, the village chief felt quite disappointed. However, after hearing the little boy's words, he kindly smiled and said, "Then you must work hard in the future and become an expert like that lord and serve the Qin Empire. Also, when you go to the Rising Qin Academy to study, you'll most likely see that lord again. When that time comes, you must properly thank him. If anything happens, that lord will help you." Hearing this, the little boy earnestly nodded. It was just that the grandfather and grandson did not know how shocked they would be the next time they saw Zhao Fu and found out that Zhao Fu was the emperor of the Qin Empire. Zhao Fu flew in the sky and did not directly return to the Qin Empire. Instead, he wanted to go to a few more places and check out the situation. At that moment, Zhao Fu saw an exquisite-looking boat slowly sailing on a river. There were many scholars wearing scholarly robes standing on the boat. Some of them were looking at the river, some were writing at tables, and some were chatting and drinking. The scene was quite lively. Zhao Fu looked at Zhao Fu and saw a beautiful and majestic boat. Zhao Fu felt quite curious and landed on the boat. Seeing a ray of light land on the boat, the people around him slightly frowned, feeling quite displeased that he had disturbed their mood. However, after the light dissipated, Zhao Fu's appearance was revealed. Seeing that he had an extraordinary aura, everyone felt quite interested. A beautiful woman with a graceful figure walked out from the boat and smiled as she said, "I'm the owner of this boat, and my name is Nalen Ruo. May I ask who you are, sir?" Zhao Fu said with a chuckle, "My surname is Zhao, and I'm not a big shot. I was just passing by and saw that it was quite lively, so I came down to take a look out of curiosity. Nayland Ruah smiled and said, most of the people on the boat are famous scholars here. However, most of them are talented but not recognized, so I invited them to the boat to enjoy the beautiful scenery of the river and relieve their depression. Unrecognized talent. When Zhao Fu heard this, he felt very surprised. In the past, he had often heard of poets who were very talented and wanted to serve the country, but were not given an important position. In the end, filled with depression and sadness, he wrote many famous articles and poems and lived his life in frustration. This mostly reflected the darkness and corruption of the imperial court. It was full of intrigue, cliques, and private interests. The monarch was also mediocre and incompetent, being manipulated by others. He did not have the slightest foresight and did not know how to recognize talent. Those who were originally very talented were not put in important positions. Now that he heard those words, he felt quite surprised. Could it be that he was mediocre and incompetent, being manipulated by others, and that he did not have the slightest foresight and did not know how to recognize talent? Was the imperial court of the Qin state dark and corrupt, filled with intrigue, cliques, and a foul atmosphere? Thinking to there, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and asked, are they really very talented? Zhao Fu's words made most of the people present feel quite displeased. They were not put in important positions by the imperial court, which made them feel quite uncomfortable. Now that someone was questioning their talent, anyone would feel quite angry. Nayland Ruah felt quite surprised and had never thought that Zhao Fu would say such a thing. She came back to her senses and smiled as she said, of course, everyone here is very talented. Sir, why do you ask? Zhao Fu smiled as he said, if they were truly talented and capable, it would be impossible for the Qin state not to put them in important positions. A gentle-looking young man in green clothes said with a trace of displeasure, sir, you must be someone from the Qin state, right? Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, sort of. The young man coldly harumphed as he said, then you're right. People from the Qin state naturally speak for themselves. Of course, I didn't mean to offend His Majesty. Right now, he's busy with all sorts of wars and has no time to manage internal affairs. Some matters in the imperial court are handled by the ministers, who are biased against us and will only put people from their faction in important positions. Those who are not from their faction will naturally not be put in important positions. Zhao Fu felt quite startled. Zhao Fu knew that the imperial court was divided into factions, and this sort of thing was bound to happen and could not be stopped. However, what Zhao Fu cared about was whether they really were biased against talented people and would only put people from their faction in important positions like the young man had said. If this was the case, when he returned to the Qin imperial palace, he would deal with these ministers and severely punish them. At that moment, a white-clothed young man came up and reminded Zhao Fu, brotherly, it's best not to talk about this. It's best not to speak carelessly about this matter. The ministers of the imperial court have their own reasons for doing things. Be careful of careless talk. After speaking, the white-clothed young man looked at Zhao Fu. His meaning was quite obvious. He was afraid that Zhao Fu, who was in the Qin state, would report this matter to the ministers. In the eyes of the ministers, people like them were like ants and could be killed at any time. The azure-clothed young man's expression was cold as he said proudly, a gentleman should be magnanimous. Why should I be afraid? What's wrong with saying something that I've always been angry about? If they want to kill me, then they can do so. Seeing this, the white-clothed young man lightly sighed as he said, brotherly, even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your family and friends. Slandering the ministers is a serious crime, and everyone related to you will be implicated. These words caused the arrogant, azure-clothed young man to look hesitant, because he did not want to see such a result. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, you don't need to worry about me. In actuality, I'm just a minor minister and am not put in an important position by the imperial court. I feel quite depressed and want to travel around to relieve my emotions. Hearing that Zhao Fu was not put in an important position, everyone could not help but feel a sense of agreement. Nayland Ruah interjected, saying, With such beautiful scenery by the river, it's best not to talk about such unpleasant things. It's best to continue reciting poems. After we have some fun, perhaps the situation will change. Her original intention was that she valued their talents and didn't want them to be depressed, so she invited them to the ship. However, she also didn't want to cause any trouble. If that happened, all of the scholars here would be implicated, and even she would not be able to avoid it. After all, she was the one who had organized this trip. Even though her family had some status here, she would not be able to resist the ministers at all. Hearing this, everyone understood that they could not continue like this, and they turned to look at the river. Chapter 1780. A gentle-looking woman stood at the side of the boat and looked ahead. She could not help but lightly recite, "The river is like a belt, and the mountain is like a jade hairpin." The person who had come was indeed a talented person, and he was someone who liked poetry. Hearing the woman recite the poem, everyone looked at the woman, and everyone's attention turned to her as if nothing had happened. A handsome young man next to her laughed and said, "The willows are like the green river, and the beauties are like the upper reaches of the river." A scholarly young man looked at the mountains in the distance and smiled as he also recited, "The green mountains are endless, and the flowing water is endless." Sitting at the side of the boat was a woman in a palace dress. She rested her chin on her hand and looked a bit worried as she looked at the river and softly recited, "The red flowers are easy to wither, and the boundless water is like sorrow." Now that someone had started, everyone else looked at the beautiful river and thought about the poem and began to recite. Zhao Fu felt that he had come to the wrong place. Facing this group of scholars who were reciting poems, he was an oddity because he did not understand poetry very well. It would be impossible for him to compose a poem. However, Zhao Fu listened by the side and found that these people were quite talented. "Sir, are you not used to it?" Nalan Raw asked with a trace of a smile when she saw how out of place Zhao Fu was. She could tell that Zhao Fu did not have a scholarly aura at all and was most likely a general in the imperial court. His aura was quite sharp and noble, and she did not believe that Zhao Fu was just a minor official. After all, a minor official would not have such an aura. However, she could not confirm Zhao Fu's identity and felt that he was not simple. As such, she wanted to make friends with him. Perhaps he was a major figure in the Qin Empire. Moreover, a general held military power, and his words were much more powerful than those of a minister. Normally, ministers would not make trouble for a general for no reason. Hearing her words, Zhao Fu smiled and nodded. Nalan Roa smiled and said, "If young master is not used to it, there are private rooms in the boat. Young master can also stay there and enjoy the beauty of the riverside." Zhao Fu shook his head and refused. He did not descend to admire the scenery. Instead, he was very concerned about the fact that his talent was not recognized. Was he really that mediocre and incompetent ruler who was manipulated by others without any foresight? Was he really that incapable ruler who would not put talented people in an important position? Although Zhao Fu didn't think that he was a wise ruler, at least he wasn't a fatuous one. Nalan Ruo felt quite surprised and couldn't understand why Zhao Fu wanted to stay with this group of poets and scholars, even though he wasn't used to it. However, Nalan Ruo soon understood the reason. Zhao Fu said to the green-clothed youth, "I can give you a chance. If you're really talented, I can introduce you to His Majesty. You can discuss all your thoughts and words with His Majesty face to face." Zhao Fu wanted to understand the fact that his talent was not recognized. Seeing that everyone was focusing on reciting poems, he didn't hide anything and directly spoke. Immediately, there was an uproar. The scholars in the surroundings also recited poems and looked at Zhao Fu in shock. The people who had been in the boat also walked out and looked at Zhao Fu in shock. This was because the person in front of them said that he could introduce them to the supreme ruler of Qin City, Qin's Majesty. This was like ascending to the heavens in a single step and saving them a lot of time. In the previous imperial examinations, only the top 10 candidates were qualified to meet His Majesty. No one else had the right to do so. Nalan Ra looked at Zhao Fu with her beautiful eyes and a look of shock on her face. She never thought that Zhao Fu's identity would be so terrifying. No wonder he gave off such a noble aura. So he was someone close to His Majesty, someone who stood above tens of thousands of people. Is that true? Because this matter was simply too big. The azure-clothed man looked quite incredulous as he looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Of course it's true. Who do you think would have the guts to say such words in Qin City?" Hearing this, everyone thought about it and started to gather. A woman wearing a red dress was the first to speak. "Sir, I want to change the current situation of women in Qin City. I want to change the current situation of Great Qin's women. Even though His Majesty advocates equality between men and women, in actuality, women are still at a disadvantage and are discriminated against or even punished." Zhao Fu nodded and smiled as he asked, "And then? What will you do to solve this problem? If you were a minister, you would do the same." The woman in the red dress said, "If I was a minister, I would increase the severity of the punishment. Only by making the commoners feel fear will they remember this principle. Also, continue to spread the word so that women do not have to feel inferior and that they can enjoy the same rights as men. If this goes on, equality between men and women will soon be achieved." Zhao Fu smiled and nodded before asking, "Is Qin City not doing enough?" The woman in the red dress replied, "Of course. Right now, Qin City is not doing enough, which is why the current situation is like this." Zhao Fu said seriously, "I think that Qin City has already done a lot. Even though your idea is quite good, it lacks practicality. The heaven-awakened world system is still in the ancient era. The idea of men being superior to women is deeply ingrained, and it involves geography, culture, and beliefs. If we make too much reform, it will cause chaos. If we want to achieve true equality, we will need to slowly change the commoners. Moreover, we will not be able to achieve true equality. For example, if we let women join the army and do heavy labor, not many women will be willing, and if we let men cook and take care of children at home, we will be discriminated against. Qin City needs a stable situation in order to have the energy to face the dangers of the outside world. Perhaps the perfect Qin City that you think will not appear." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the woman in the red dress understood that perhaps her idea was too idealistic and lacked practicality. The people in the surroundings started to seriously consider this matter, wondering if they were thinking too simply. Even though some things could be raised, they could not be solved. Everyone looked at Zhao Fu and could not help but feel admiration for him. As expected from someone by His Majesty's side, his way of thinking was completely different from theirs. The green-clothed man bowed to Zhao Fu and said, "Sir, your idea is indeed brilliant. I also have a question about Qin City's laws being too strict, as well as some literature books." Chapter 1781. Also, Qin often beheaded people, hung them at the city gates, skinned them, cut their bellies, and cracked their bones. These methods are too bloody and cruel. Qin should change his way of doing things. Qin shouldn't be so barbaric and cruel. Also, when Great Qin conquers a region, Great Qin will viciously and bloodily slaughter those who have high statuses and are arrogant. I believe that if we treat them well, they will be of great use to us. Firstly, it will be easier for Qin to win the hearts of the people. Secondly, they are knowledgeable and arrogant, so they should be respected. Finally, all books related to medicine and agriculture were burned. To a region or a kingdom, this was a massive loss. Moreover, Great Qin did not ask about sensitive matters and directly suppressed them with blood. That was simply too cruel. Zhao Fu looked at Great Qin and said, "Great Qin's, Great Qin's, Great Qin's, Great Qin's, Great Qin's, Great Qin Empire." Hearing this, Zhao Fu could not help but chuckle as he said, "You will be a good poet, but not a good civil official. The path of an official is not suitable for you." Hearing Zhao Fu say that he did not have the ability to become an official, the azure-clothed young man felt quite dissatisfied and said, "Sir, I'm not an official. Please tell me why." Zhao Fu explained with a smile, "First of all, if a person commits a crime, his whole family will be executed. Why do you think Qin did this? You just said that it was wrong, but you never thought about why Qin did this. This is the first reason why you can't be an official. You think too subjectively and don't consider the overall situation. The reason why Qin did this is that Qin's situation is far worse than you think. He must use high-pressure methods to stabilize the hearts of the people. Moreover, will all crimes be punished? Only serious crimes will be punished, especially those that shake the hearts of the people. Also, Qin's methods are bloody and cruel. This is also one of the high-pressure methods. In order to stabilize the unity, it is also a warning to those who commit crimes, so that they will think about the consequences before they do evil. Although it is bloody and cruel, the effects are very good. This is also your second reason. You are too kind. Although being kind is a good thing, you have to consider when to do it. Moreover, in the current world, people who are too kind won't live long. Then, we will attack the next area and slaughter those literati and people of high status who are unwilling to surrender. They are proud and admirable, but what's the use of them to Qin? If Qin has the patience to make them surrender slowly, he will win the hearts of the people. But now Qin doesn't have time and patience at all. He needs to stabilize the situation as soon as possible. If they don't surrender, they will die. If one person doesn't surrender, one person will die. If the people in a region don't surrender, all the people in that region will die. If the people in a country don't surrender, all the people in that country will be slaughtered. Although this method is bloody and cruel, it is the most effective method. This is also the main reason why Qin carried out this method. The last problem is the burning of all kinds of books. Maybe this is a huge loss for you literati. It is a spiritual treasure and very precious. But everything that is not conducive to Qin's rule must be eliminated. Those books may be the most important and the most expensive for you literati, but they are useless for Qin. On the contrary, they are things that harm Qin. Even if you don't want to, you object, or even you petition, those things will still be destroyed. There is no room for negotiation. A civil official should consider how to manage a region and how to maintain Qin's rule more effectively. You can use any method, as long as you can achieve your goal. However, you didn't do it. You are talented, and you care about Qin. You love the people, and you will become a poet. But you can't be a good civil official. That's what I mean. A civil official is not as good as you think, and they are not free and unfettered to write poems every day. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the man in indigo's face turned pale. The others also looked a little pale. Now, they understood why Qin didn't put them in an important position even though they were talented. Being a civil official was not the same as being a poet. Even if they were well-read and could write all kinds of poems, they might not be good civil officials. However, the civil officials were not as bright as they had imagined. There was some unknown darkness, and they would encounter countless things. They would not be as carefree and happy as they were now. They could recite poems every day, and when they were tired, they could just sleep. Some people sighed and reconsidered themselves. They wondered if they had the ability to be a good civil official. They also wondered if being a civil official was their pursuit and ideal, and whether it was suitable for them. Some of them felt that they didn't have the ability, and some felt that they were not suitable. They decided to give up the road of being an official and turn to other things. Some people became even more determined. As a civil official, not only could they manage regions and commoners, but they could also realize their ideals and protect others. They were also respected by others and had the power to control others. This was the charm of being an official, or else not everyone would want to be an official. The azure-clothed young man now had a complicated expression on his face. Everything was different from what he had expected, and he didn't know what to do. Should he continue on the path of an official, or give up on doing something else? Nalanra looked at Zhao Fu with a trace of admiration and smiled as she said, "The people by His Majesty Qin's side are indeed not ordinary. Sir, you must have a high position in Qin and are valued by His Majesty, right?" Hearing her words, everyone realized that Zhao Fu's identity was far more terrifying than they had imagined. They also felt gratitude and admiration. Zhao Fu was so noble and was someone they had to look up to and worship. However, he was so polite and gentle and didn't put on any airs. He answered their questions and explained the way of being an official. If he hadn't appeared this time, they would have returned from their trip and felt better, but they would still have continued on the path of being an official. After all, they wouldn't have known where they had gone wrong and would have failed. In the end, they would have died of depression. Hearing Nailan Rua's words, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, "There's no such thing. However, His Majesty is a very good person. Even though he is often busy with various things and rarely manages internal affairs, he still cares about internal affairs. He isn't like what you all think." After saying this, Zhao Fu felt a bit embarrassed because they had no idea who the person in front of them was. Of course, because of this, Zhao Fu learned that there was such a group of people in Qin City. This was a gain and allowed him to learn more about Qin City. Chapter 1782. Zhao Fu did not say much because praising himself in front of so many people was a bit too shameless. However, Zhao Fu said earnestly, "Even though you're not suitable to be officials, Qin needs your talents. It's because of scholars like you that Qin's culture is so strong, and that's the soul of Qin." Hearing this, the people who had been feeling quite dejected now smiled because it seemed that they were quite important to Qin. That was right. In order to realize one's dreams and ambitions, one did not have to become an official. Other paths were fine as well. Everyone regained their confidence and looked at Zhao Fu with admiration. As expected from someone by His Majesty's side, Zhao Fu was far more outstanding than them. "Sir, you're indeed a talented person. What's your name? Where do you live? If you have time, you can go visit in the future," Nailan Rua said with a trace of a smile. She felt that the man in front of her was quite ordinary. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "If it's fated, we'll definitely meet again in the future." After speaking, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and shot into the horizon, not giving anyone time to react. Nailan Rua regretted not keeping Zhao Fu here. She definitely had to be on good terms with a prestigious figure like Zhao Fu. If she had connections with such a figure, her family's status in this place would have risen. On a small mountain, there was a simple and unadorned temple that was surrounded by cherry trees. The petals were pink, and there were many of them, making it look like a sea of flowers. The scene was quite beautiful and peaceful. This was a forest in the wilderness, and there was only this temple. There were no other villages or gathering places. Pleasant bird cries sounded out, and butterflies danced among the flowers, making this place seem like a paradise. A few women dressed in monk robes were smiling as they dug holes with hoes and placed saplings in them to water them. They were currently planting small cherry blossom trees. Suddenly, a tiger's roar sounded out as a spotted tiger jumped out and looked at the women in Buddhist robes savagely before giving off a ferocious aura as it rushed at the women in Buddhist robes. The women's faces became pale, and they were so scared that their legs became weak. They did not have any strength, while that tiger had stage 2 strength. However, they reacted quite quickly. They threw down their things and quickly ran towards the temple, shouting, "Master, hurry up and tell us." When a beautiful woman heard the noise, she hurriedly walked out of the temple. When she saw the tiger, she was shocked. Just as she was about to run over, it was too late. The speed of the tiger is very fast. It caught up to the few women who were running away. It pounced forward and threw the women to the ground, opened its mouth, and bit towards the women. When the woman saw the jaws of the tiger, tears flowed out of her eyes. She was extremely afraid and felt that she was going to die in the next second. She let out a shrill scream. Boom! A powerful aura descended as if a formless gravity weighed down on everyone's bodies, causing the surroundings to fall silent. The tiger, which had wanted to bite the woman to death, lay there in terror like a little cat, not daring to move at all. This person was simply too terrifying. Standing in the air, Zhao Fu lightly laughed. Seeing that the tiger was quite tactful, he landed on the ground and helped the woman up. The woman stared blankly at Zhao Fu, who had descended from the sky, and helped her up. Her face became slightly red as she said emotionally, Thank you. Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said, It's no problem. The other women ran over and looked at the woman in concern as they asked, Yaru, are you all right? The woman called Yaru nodded with a red face. Following this, the other women looked at Zhao Fu, a seemingly cheerful woman who looked a bit curious as she said, Thank you for saving our Yaru. Also, may I ask who you are? We haven't had a man here for 6 years. Another good-looking woman said, What do you mean no man has come in 6 years? Big sissy, what do you mean by that? It's as if we lack men. It's more like no man has come since we came here. A slightly flirtatious-looking woman smiled as she said, Sir, I'm quite curious. Looking at his noble temperament, he must be a big shot, right? What business do you have with us? We have nothing but women here. Zhao Fu chuckled. I was just passing by. I saw that you were in danger, so I stopped. The woman called Yaru looked at Zhao Fu and said with a red face, You, don't talk nonsense. This young master is a gentleman. Don't think of others like that. The woman called you smiled charmingly. But I didn't say anything. This young master said that he was really good-looking and had a very attractive aura. Were the scriptures you usually read? Not the least bit reserved. The mature-looking woman had a cold expression as she walked over and said to the women. The women felt quite afraid and did not say anything, and they lowered their heads and retreated to the side. The mature-looking woman coldly looked at Zhao Fu and said, Thank you for saving my disciple's life. I owe you a favor, and if you have anything you want, I'll do my best to satisfy you. However, we don't welcome you here, so please leave. Zhao Fu looked quite surprised. It was the first time that he had heard someone say that they didn't welcome him in his own kingdom and territory. Moreover, it seemed that the woman in front of him also hated men. Zhao Fu felt quite interested and smiled as he said, This doesn't seem to be your territory, right? According to Qin's laws, this is the wilderness, and all of Qin's territory belongs to the imperial court. You have no right to tell me to leave. Also, with your strength, aren't you afraid that I'll kill you for speaking to me in such a tone? The mature-looking woman did not feel any fear as she said, Since you're using Qin's laws to speak, you should understand that even Qin's nobles can't kill innocent people, or else your majesty will severely punish you. Hearing this, Zhao Fu could not help but loudly laugh and say, You also have no right to ask me to leave. The mature-looking woman coldly harumphed. It's up to you whether you want to leave or not. Also, what do you want from saving my disciple? I'll do my best to repay you and settle this matter. Zhao Fu thought about it and smiled as he said, I want to ask you some questions, and if I'm satisfied, I'll leave. Of course, you need to be polite, or else I'll really kill you. I'm not joking. Chapter 1783. Ordinary nobles of the Qin Empire would definitely be afraid of the laws of the Qin Empire. If they heard the laws of the Qin Empire, they would have to consider whatever they wanted to do. After all, even if they were nobles in the Qin Empire, the laws of the Qin Empire did not give them any preferential treatment. It could be said that the laws of the Qin Empire were a protective barrier for ordinary people. However, when facing truly terrifying people in the Qin Empire, ordinary laws were useless against them. This was because their status in the Qin Empire was extremely terrifying. Unless they directly reported this to Emperor Qin, they would not be punished. The person in front of them was not afraid of the laws of the Qin Empire. Coupled with his noble temperament, it was clear that he was a terrifying person. Moreover, with his strength, he could easily kill them. The mature woman thought for a moment. Although she was somewhat unwilling, her tone became more polite as she said, Ask me anything. I will try my best to answer you. Seeing her attitude, Zhao Fu gave a satisfied smile as he said, The first question is, why are you here? Is it because Qin doesn't treat you well? Or is there another reason? Moreover, if you are from a sect, it seems that Qin also treats you well. The mature woman calmly replied, 6 years ago, there were all kinds of wars, and the people had no way to make a living. They were all persecuted by the war, so I took them to escape here to avoid the flames of war. At that time, this place was still a bare mountain. The cherry blossom forest is the result of our 6 years of hard work. After staying here for so long, we don't want to leave. Also, we're not from a sect. We're just a group of women who want to escape to the mortal world. We don't want to be disturbed, nor do we want to be separated from anyone. Zhao Fu understood. Before, Zhao Fu had thought that these people were hiding in this barren mountain because they were afraid of Qin. You have been staying here for a long time, but you seem to know a lot about the outside world. What do you think about Qin? Is there anything that Qin lacks? The mature woman couldn't help but sneer. You're a high-ranking official of the imperial court, so how could I dare to speak ill of Qin? If I do, I'm afraid that my disciples and I will be skinned in public tomorrow. Hearing this, Zhao Fu seemed to have some complaints about Qin, so Zhao Fu asked, "Then tell me, what did Qin do wrong?" "Don't worry. No matter what you say, I won't do anything to you, and I can guarantee that no one in Qin will dare to hurt you." The mature woman looked at Zhao Fu in disbelief and said, "Aren't you a bit too arrogant? Even Li Si and Bai Qi wouldn't dare to say such words in the imperial court. Be careful that your words don't reach His Majesty's ears. With His Majesty's cruel and ruthless personality, you'll die a horrible death." Zhao Fu could tell that this woman also had a problem with him. But now, no one in Qin's group was like that. They were all praising and worshiping his contribution and ability. When it came to being cruel and ruthless, Zhao Fu had to admit that he could be like this sometimes. Thinking about this, Zhao Fu said, "Don't worry about this. Tell me what you're dissatisfied with about Qin." The mature woman looked at Zhao Fu and said, "Do you think I'm stupid and will believe you? When that time comes, we'll be the ones to die." Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the woman in front of him and stretched out a hand, grabbing her by the throat and lifting her up. The mature woman immediately felt suffocated, and her face became red as she struggled to get up. She grabbed onto Zhao Fu's hand with both hands, wanting to pry open Zhao Fu's hand. However, she was not strong enough to pry open Zhao Fu's hand at all. The women next to her were startled, and they had never thought that Zhao Fu would suddenly attack. He said that he would kill people, and they hurriedly went up and said with tears in their eyes, "Sir, please don't kill our master. It was she who took care of us for 6 years and protected us for 6 years. We'll tell you everything you want to know and agree to anything you want." Zhao Fu let go of her hand, and the mature woman fell to the ground and panted heavily as she glared at Zhao Fu. After a while, she said angrily, "You people from Qin's group are all so domineering and domineering." Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled and said, "If you had been obedient, you wouldn't have done this." The mature woman angrily glared at Zhao Fu and said, "I hope you can keep your promise. I admit that the human world is so powerful and the people can live such a comfortable life, all thanks to you people from Qin's group. It's you people from Qin's group who have protected all of this. However, I can't forget how you attacked our city back then and slaughtered us. My father died at your hands, and my mother and loved ones were captured by you to be used by your lustful great Qin's majesty," Zhao Fu said as he looked at Zhao Fu. "I knew that I couldn't save them, nor could I resist Qin. If I dared to express my thoughts, I would be regarded as a rebel and killed. After I found out that they were doing well, I met my disciples. At that time, they were only 13 or 14 years old, and their parents and relatives were all killed by Qin's group when they attacked our city. I took them with me to avoid the flames of war and to avoid Qin. However, Qin had already unified the world and became one of the most powerful empires in this world. We all knew that it was impossible for us to take revenge, so we could only submit to Qin and plan to spend the rest of our lives here." Hearing this, Zhao Fu seemed to be lost in thought. Qin's road to unify the world was built on countless corpses. The number of people like these women might be very large, so Qin had to strengthen the management. However, it was also because Qin was powerful and could give them a stable life without fear that they finally submitted to Qin. Except for those who hated him very much, they would not do anything to resist. This was a bit dangerous. They were the hidden cancer. Because Qin seemed to be fine now, they didn't dare to do anything. However, once something happened to Qin, they would harm Qin. It seemed that he had to make some measures when he went back. He had to find out those who harmed Qin and eliminate them first, so that they wouldn't have a chance. Yongye could be responsible for dealing with this matter, and if he found them, he could assassinate them directly. Moreover, he had to strengthen the ideological control. Perhaps the older generation would remember what Qin had done, but they would grow old and die, and the younger generation would forget. They were living such a good life now, and it was impossible for them to let their children do stupid things. Of course, just in case, when it came to this aspect, he had to strengthen the management to eliminate these hidden dangers. It was estimated that Qin's high-pressure state would last for a long time. Only in this way could the internal affairs of Qin be stable, so that Qin could resist external threats. After coming back from his contemplation, Zhao Fu looked at the mature women on the ground and said with a smile, "Don't worry. As long as you submit to Qin, I won't hurt you. Although I am cruel and violent, I only treat those who don't submit or my enemies, not the people of Qin." Chapter 1784. First of all, Zhao Fu didn't seem to be speaking like a subject, but like the ruler of Qin. Moreover, the mature woman had just said that Prince Qin was cruel and ruthless, but now he said that he was cruel and ruthless, but he wouldn't treat his own people, enemies, or people who didn't submit. Thinking about that, everyone's hearts sank as they thought of a terrifying possibility. This possibility was unbelievable. The person in front of them was Prince Qin, the ruler of Qin, and the person with the highest authority in Qin. The mature woman was incredibly shocked, and she stared at Zhao Fu as she said, "You're Prince Qin?" Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the mature woman in front of him and said, "That's right. I'm the lecherous Prince Qin, the person who killed your father and stole your mother and lover." She said that her lover had been sent to Qin's harem with her mother. She was most likely a woman, and she was quite pretty. No wonder she hated men so much and had female disciples. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, flames of fury burned in the mature woman's eyes. She clenched her fists and wanted to take revenge, but in the end, she didn't do anything. Firstly, she wasn't a match for Zhao Fu, and secondly, her mother and lover were in his hands. Finally, she thought about her 6 years of Zen cultivation, and her anger gradually subsided as she coldly said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." The other women also looked incredibly shocked. They had never thought that the ruler of Qin would come to them. Even though the deaths of their loved ones were related to Qin, they didn't dare to have any thoughts of revenge. They only felt fear and despair. This was the memory that Prince Qin had given them. Now, their faces were pale as they knelt on the ground, their bodies trembling. Zhao Fu lightly laughed as he said, "Don't worry, I said that I won't kill you, so I won't. Just continue to be good citizens of Qin." Hearing this, the women all let out sighs of relief. The mature woman stood there expressionlessly. She didn't say anything and was as cold as ice. Zhao Fu looked at her and said with a smile, "Do you still want to see your mother and lover?" These words caused the mature woman's expression to change. Her eyes flashed with light, and she could not help but feel delighted. Her breathing became ragged. This was what she had wanted to do the most in the past 6 years. "Yes." The mature woman looked at Zhao Fu and replied in a resolute tone. Zhao Fu smiled and said, "I will give you a chance to see them. But since they have entered Qin's imperial palace, they can't be free, nor can they be returned to you. You have to understand this." The mature woman gave a trace of a smile and nodded. Being able to see those two was already something that she could only dream of. What else could she hope for? The women next to him also gave happy smiles. This was the first time they had seen their master so happy, and they knew that this was something their master had always wanted. Now, his dream had finally come true. "Do you still have any dissatisfaction towards Qin?" Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the mature woman. The mature woman gave a trace of a smile and bowed as she said, "Your Majesty, you must be joking. How could I still dare to be dissatisfied? I can't even thank Your Majesty right now." The women next to her also smiled as they said, "We've heard others say that Qin's Majesty is a terrifying demon king or something. We never thought that Your Majesty would be such a good person." Zhao Fu lightly laughed and said to the mature woman, "I still have things to do. After you come to Qin's imperial palace, tell the guards, and I'll send people to deal with your matters." The mature woman gave a trace of smile and once again thanked Zhao Fu. Just as Zhao Fu was about to leave, he saw the tiger obediently lying on the ground, looking as scared as a kitten. Since it was so obedient, Zhao Fu naturally would not kill it. However, if he let it go, it would continue to harm people in the future. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu waved his hand and sent a restriction into the tiger's body, and the tiger did not dare to resist. Zhao Fu turned and smiled as he said, "Consider this a small gift to you. Let him become the guardian beast of a temple." The women all smiled happily and hurriedly thanked Zhao Fu. With such a big tiger, they would be much better off. Zhao Fu did not say anything and turned into a ray of light as he shot towards the horizon. The women looked at the direction in which Zhao Fu had disappeared, their hearts beating rapidly. This was most likely the greatest fortuitous encounter they had ever had. They had actually met the ruler of Qin's imperial palace. Following this, Zhao Fu went to a few more places to check on the situation and ask about the residents' opinions before returning to Qin's imperial palace. By now, various factions had sent over a large number of memorials, which were all about the people's opinions and how to repair the villages and cities. Zhao Fu sat on his throne and started to read them, feeling more motivated than before. Perhaps it was because he felt that he had an obligation and responsibility. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu could not help but think about the mature woman, and he ordered people to call over the two women. One was a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure and a virtuous aura, while the other had an alluring figure and gave off a heroic aura. The beautiful woman was the mature woman's mother, and the heroic woman was the mature woman's lover. After being called over by Zhao Fu, the two women thought that they were here to serve Zhao Fu. Their faces were red, and their eyes glowed with tears as they flirtatiously bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu looked at the two of them and felt that he had some impression of them. He smiled and told them about the mature women. The two women immediately smiled in pleasant surprise, and the beautiful woman said happily, "Your Majesty, may I ask where my daughter is? Now, she should serve you and become Qin's concubine." The beautiful woman thought that with her daughter's beauty, Emperor Qin would definitely like her and take her into his harem. When that time came, she would be able to reunite with her daughter and live together every day. Zhao Fu lightly smiled as he said, "It's not what you think. I just came to tell you that she might come back in a few days." The two women smiled and nodded before looking at Zhao Fu expectantly. However, Zhao Fu had them leave and looked at the memorials again. There were indeed a few things that he had to take care of, such as the families of the soldiers who had died in battle. This made Zhao Fu think of the village head's family, and he felt that he should give them better treatment. Moreover, he had to carry it out properly so that the families of the soldiers who had died in battle would not be in a difficult situation. As for the soldiers who had died in battle, Qin had kept their corpses. Of course, they could also choose to do so. Chapter 1785. The second option was to turn into Qin's ghost soldiers. Perhaps one day, they would regain their consciousness and memories, which would be like being reborn. Many people didn't want to lose their families and friends, nor did they want to die, so they chose the second option. However, the number of people who could turn into ghost soldiers was limited, so Qin stored the corpses of those soldiers. The second problem was the corruption in the officialdom, as well as forming cliques for private interests and appointing trusted aides instead of virtuous people. These things had to be taken seriously and thoroughly investigated. This was the source of civil strife, and many ancient dynasties had perished because of this. Zhao Fu would never allow these things to happen. Of course, this was discovered when Zhao Fu landed on a big boat in the middle of the river and talked with many scholars. They weren't suitable to be officials and had some misunderstandings about the ministers, so Zhao Fu didn't want what they said to happen. Thinking about this, Zhao Fu called Yi Qiuye, who used to be the holy maiden of the White Lotus cult. She had been integrated into Qin's intelligence organization, and the White Lotus cult had been changed to the White cult. This was because the White sect's forte was in bewitching people's hearts. It was also the most widespread and had many members. There were all sorts of people, including a beggar, a rich merchant, or a soldier. All of these were possible. Most of Great Qin's information was obtained through them, and they provided a lot of information. There were all kinds of information, but some secret information could not be obtained. The one responsible for this was Eternal Night. The Eternal Night was not only responsible for assassinations, but it was also responsible for secret matters, and it was the most terrifying of the three factions. The Flower Moon also collected all kinds of information, but some of them were related to business. Because Qin was hostile to the surrounding countries, it was impossible for them to do business. However, the Flower Moon was doing well in the Qin Empire. It became the most important helper for Qin to control the business economy. Your Majesty, what can I do for you? Yi Qiuya's beautiful eyes seduced Zhao Fu, and her voice was a bit flirtatious. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Nothing much. I just want you to pay more attention to the affairs of the ministers in the court in the future. Of course, don't bother too much about small matters. Just pay attention to some big matters, especially those related to Qin's policies." Yi Qiu gave an alluring smile as she said, "Your Majesty, leave this matter to us. Don't worry, the people of the White Sect will definitely take care of it. Also, why hasn't His Majesty visited us recently? We miss His Majesty very much." Zhao Fu chuckled. "You can leave first. I'll go back when I have time." Yi Qiu happily laughed. "Then, Your Majesty, I want to go down and wait for you to come to us." After Yi Qiu left, Zhao Fu summoned the Evernight people. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The 11 people controlling Eternal Night, namely Wang Ergu, Lu Mei, and the others, came before Zhao Fu and greeted him. Zhao Fu responded and didn't waste any time. "I don't have anything else to tell you. I just want you to start investigating all the people who might cause harm to Qin. No matter who they are, you can kill them directly." "Yes, Your Majesty." The 11 people replied in unison before leaving the Great Hall. After hearing that Zhao Fu was giving out orders, the ministers all felt quite wary. They knew that their Majesty had gone out because he had changed his mind. As the ruler of Qin, the entire Qin Empire felt a bit depressed and nervous. However, because Zhao Fu's actions were very secretive, they didn't cause too much of a commotion, and the Qin Empire still looked very peaceful. Following this, Zhao Fu called Li Si over to discuss some policies, which he would discuss with the ministers at the Imperial Court Conference. Li Si felt quite surprised because this was the first time that Zhao Fu had been so interested in the internal affairs of the Great Qin village and the Great Qin Empire. Normally, he would not have been like this. Suddenly, a soldier came in and reported, "Your Majesty, the second wind god's messenger has sent someone to see you." Zhao Fu felt quite confused. Why would the second wind god want to see him? Moreover, they didn't have a good relationship at all. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu ordered his people to gather information on the second wind god and took a quick look. It turned out that the first Aeolian Empire had been severely damaged in the alchemy world, and its strength had greatly decreased. Moreover, it had to face enemies all around it and couldn't even protect itself, which made the second wind god change a bit. The reason why the second wind god was so fearless and arrogant was that it had the support of the first Aeolian Empire. As a kingdom in the middle domain, it had the ability to crush the outer domain. Even the kingdoms in the outer domain didn't dare to offend it, and ordinary forces could only give in to it. Now that it had lost its biggest support, the second Aeolian Empire definitely couldn't be like before, which was why it had sent a messenger. Otherwise, with the second wind god's arrogant attitude, why would it send messenger? Zhao Fu went to meet the emissary, who was a kind middle-aged man. Seeing Zhao Fu come out, the kind middle-aged man smiled and bowed, saying, "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu said with a trace of a smile, "Why is the second Aeolian Empire looking for Qin?" Seeing Zhao Fu smile, the kind middle-aged man let out a sigh of relief. After all, the two sides were enemies, and if he came to visit, it would definitely make Qin's Majesty displeased. However, the result was the opposite. As such, the kind middle-aged man said with a smile, "Your Majesty Qin?" In actuality, I'm here on behalf of the Second Wind God to invite Qin to the Second Aeolian Empire to resolve a natural disaster. We'll also give him food as a reward." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. So this was the purpose. In actuality, Qin and the Second Wind God didn't have much enmity, but there was a lot of enmity between him and the First Aeolian Empire. Moreover, the Second Wind God not only wanted to resolve the natural disaster, but it also wanted to improve its relationship with Qin. Perhaps this was the Second Aeolian Empire's true purpose. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided that resolving the natural disaster would be beneficial to Qin, and it would be disadvantageous to the Second Wind God. Zhao Fu nodded and agreed. In order to prevent the other party from becoming suspicious, he said, "I can promise the Second Aeolian Empire this, but you must give me 4 times the amount of food." The kind middle-aged man couldn't help but feel delighted. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would agree so easily. He had thought that would be very difficult, but it was only 4 times the amount of food. Even though food was quite important to the Second Wind God, it was worth it. "Your Majesty, I can promise you this," the kind middle-aged man said to Zhao Fu, suppressing the joy in his heart. Chapter 1786. After that, the kind man also left. After a while, Qin received the food sent by the Aeolian Empire and sent a disaster stopper to solve the disaster. At that moment, Gongsun Zhu and her sister came to Qin and smiled as they said, "Your Majesty, we've already found something." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and smiled. He had asked his sisters to research metals in the alchemy world, and they had most likely made some progress. He asked, "What did you learn?" Gongsun Zhu smiled as he said, "Your Majesty, come with us and have a look. It will definitely surprise you." When Zhao Fu heard this, he felt some anticipation in his heart. He smiled and nodded before following the 2 sisters to an open space. Gongsun Zhu took out a sword. This sword was a little special. It was only about a foot long, and it did not have a hilt. There was only a blade. It was silvery white in color, and there were grooves on both sides of the blade. Gongsun Zhu placed the sword in his left hand and clasped the 2 fingers of his right hand together, forming a sword finger. He sent a wave of power into it, causing the sword finger to give off a faint light. Clang, clang, clang. The sword in his left hand began to tremble and emit a crisp sword hum. The sword also emitted a faint light. At that moment, Gongsun Zhu forcefully raised his sword fingers, and an even stronger sword hum rang out. The sword flew up from Gongsun Zhu's hand, giving off a bright sword light as it floated in front of Gongsun Zhu. When Zhao Fu saw this, he couldn't help but be surprised. Isn't this a flying sword from the cultivation world? Who would have thought that Gongsun Zhu and her sister would actually be able to develop this thing? It was truly too surprising. At this moment, Gongsun Zhu was drawing circles with her sword. The sword that was flying in the air seemed to have a life of its own as it spun around Gongsun Zhu. At that moment, Gongsun Zhu sent even more power into his fingers, causing the flying sword to give off an intense sword light. A sharp aura spread out, causing people's hairs to stand on end, and they could not help but feel fear. Clang! Gongsun Zhu pointed at a large boulder in front of him, and the flying sword gave off a sword hum. It gave off a sharp power and turned into a ray of light as it shot forwards incredibly quickly, slashing past the boulder in an instant. Pooh! That 2-meter-big rock was directly penetrated by the flowing light, leaving behind a 2-finger-wide hole. That hard rock was like tofu, without any resistance. After the flying sword pierced through the boulder, it directly stabbed into the ground behind the boulder, emitting a faint sword light. Gongsun Zhu curled his fingers, and the sword stabbed into the ground gave off a powerful sword light again. It turned into a stream of light that shot towards Gongsun Zhu, and then stopped in front of him. Gongsun Zhu withdrew the power from his fingers, and the flying sword lost its light and fell from the air. Gongsun Zhu smiled as he stretched out his hand to catch the flying sword and said, "Your Majesty, how do you feel?" Zhao Fu also nodded happily. "Very good. How did you make these flying swords?" To be able to control a sword like this requires an extremely powerful sword cultivator. By the side, Gongsun Zhu gave a trace of pride as he smiled and said, "Of course, big sis, and I spent a lot of time and effort on this, and we even gathered all of Gongsun Zhu's family to discuss it. Who knows how much difficulty we went through before we were able to make this. For this item, don't you think our family should be heavily rewarded? Of course, us sisters need as well. If you have any rare materials in the future, you have to tell us immediately." Hearing this, Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "That's for sure. If Qin can master this flying sword, his power will become quite terrifying. Moreover, Qin will have an additional long-range attack ability." Gongsun Lin also gave a happy smile. She had spent so much effort researching this, and now she had received Zhao Fu's approval. Zhao Fu looked at Gongsun Zhu and said, "How did you make this flying sword?" Gongsun Zhu smiled as she explained, "Even though this flying sword looks quite simple, it's actually quite difficult to make. First of all, we discovered that the mechanized parts of the alchemist's bodies are not ordinary ores or metals, but vitality metals. Although they lack spiritual power, in our eyes, they are undoubtedly a very good spiritual material and container. Under normal circumstances, they are relatively rare and can be used to create terrifying equipment with extremely strong spiritual power. However, the goldsmith world is mostly made of life metals, which is quite shocking. We understood that if we could use life metals to their full potential, they would be incredibly useful. As such, we asked the Gongsun family's seniors and various ancient texts to find a rough method. Of course, this method wouldn't be able to create flying swords. It was just a starting point. The problem at the beginning is that the goldsmith world's metals and the Heaven Awakened world's metals are items from two different worlds, so it's quite difficult to fuse them together. However, with the matter of fusing materials from the Heaven Awakened world and outer world, this problem is easily solved. The second problem is that even though life metals have life, they lack spirituality. We originally planned to fuse things with spirituality into them, but things with spirituality are incredibly rare and impossible to obtain in large quantities. Lin and I thought about it and decided to use a spirit chi formation to send large amounts of spirit energy into the life metals to increase their spirit energy. Because they had already fused with materials from the Heaven Awakened world, the rate at which the materials absorbed spirit energy was not very fast. The materials that were filled with spirit energy became completely different from before. If the life metals are like living bodies, then the spirituality is like a soul. When the two of them are fused together, they form a metallic life form. My sister and I named this type of metal the heavenly refining metal, formed from the first word of the two worlds. We tried to forge some weapons with this type of heavenly refining metal, but found that it was not suitable for forging because it was very easy to destroy the heavenly refining metal. As such, my little sister and I went through many of the Gongsun family's forging texts and found a method to nurture a sword. We used this method to nurture a sword and didn't forge it anymore. The end result was quite surprising. The sword that was nurtured became an extremely terrifying sword, and its grade and power were greatly increased. It can now be used as a powerful weapon. However, its spirituality was still lacking, and it couldn't unleash the sword's power. My little sister and I thought of a method, which was to fuse a creature's soul and some of your blood into the sword while it was being nurtured. Chapter 1787. Also, this type of flying sword is only suitable for sword cultivators. This method of nurturing swords has already nurtured a trace of a sword spirit. Even though it is not very powerful, only sword cultivators can unleash its power. Moreover, the various attributes of swords are quite suitable for sword cultivators. I was only a half-sword cultivator and did not unleash its true power. If it is given to sword cultivators, it will be even more powerful. Zhao Fu listened to Gongsun Zhu's explanation and felt that it would be quite complicated to create. However, what Zhao Fu cared about the most was whether it could be mass-produced. If it could not be mass-produced, it would not be of much use to Qin no matter how powerful it was. Thinking to there, Zhao Fu asked. Gongsun Zhu smiled and nodded. Your Majesty, I've mentioned this before, and I've also thought about the problem of mass production. So don't worry, this type of flying sword can be mass-produced, and it's still being improved. Who knows, there might be flying swords in the cultivation world, combined swords, and even the 10,000 returning swords. Hearing this, Zhao Fu could not help but smile and feel quite excited. He could already foresee that after Qin grasped this method, the scene of countless flying swords filling the sky would be incredibly terrifying. Gongsun Zhu talked about flying swords, combined swords, and even the 10,000 returning swords. This made Zhao Fu even more excited. Most importantly, it could be mass-produced. As such, Zhao Fu said, "Give me the method to create flying swords, and I'll immediately order people to prepare various things. After this, I'll heavily reward the Gongsun family." Gongsun Zhu smiled and nodded before starting to explain the method of creating flying swords in detail. First, it required a large amount of alchemy materials. This was not a problem, as Qin had stored a large amount of alchemy materials. These materials were all obtained from the alchemist race's corpses. Half of them were hands and feet, and the large pile looked quite terrifying. Of course, the philosopher's stones within their bodies had also been dug out and gathered together. These were the alchemy materials that Zhao Fu was talking about. Because there were many of them, they were also the most common material. Of course, because it was life metal, the higher the creature's level, the higher the metal's level would be, and the higher the grade of the flying swords would be. Right now, Qin only needed a large number of flying swords. Those common alchemy materials were already enough, and he did not need any high-grade materials. Moreover, the higher the grade of the flying swords, the more cultivation was required. Right now, Qin did not have many experts, and he did not even have stage 2 soldiers. As such, even if he could create a large number of high-grade flying swords, Qin would not be able to use them. The second was the sword embryo. This sword embryo was the most important thing to form a flying sword. Without it, it would be impossible to create a flying sword, and it would be impossible to even use the heavenly, refining metal. The sword embryo was not simple at all, as it was the Gongsun family, and it was made from metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. It was of sword. Qin's soul was also quite important, but it was quite simple for Qin. After all, Qin killed many people every day and could use their souls. Moreover, the souls of humans were more spiritual than those of beasts. Finally, there were people who could use the flying swords. Only sword cultivators could unleash the power of the flying swords, so Qin naturally wanted to nurture a large number of sword cultivators. The first person that Zhao Fu thought of was Gun Nia's sword sect. Last time, when Qin had carried out his plan, the sword sect had performed quite well. They had killed decisively, and they had followed Qin's orders and massacred factions. However, the sword sect was just a faction, and Qin needed an army of sword cultivators. A sect could not be an army, as the number of people and rules were different. It could not be compared to a regular army. However, only a sect like that would be able to nurture the most powerful sword cultivators. An army would not be able to do so. In the future, the flying swords would become Qin's most important weapon. Zhao Fu not only wanted to nurture a large number of sword cultivators, but he also wanted to nurture a large number of high-tier sword cultivators. He wanted to avoid the awkward situation of having a large number of high-tier flying swords, but no sword cultivators. If the sword sect became a faction that was half sect and half army, combining the advantages of both factions, that would be the best outcome. Zhao Fu was not a sword cultivator, so he did not know much about sword cultivators. Zhao Fu did not know how they cultivated, how they judged people with sword cultivation talent, or how they comprehended the way of the sword. This made Zhao Fu think of a person, and that person was Gun Nia, Qin's #1 swordsman. Now that the flying swords had appeared, Gun Nia would be put in an even more important position. He would no longer be the sect master of a sect, but the commander of an army. After hearing Zhao Fu's orders, Gania quickly came to Zhao Fu's side, and his expression was calm as he said, "Your Majesty, what business do you have with me?" Zhao Fu smiled as he stretched out his hand and handed the flying sword to Gania. Zhao Fu said, "What do you think of this sword?" Gania's sharp gaze fell on the sword, and he found that it was quite different from normal swords. He stretched out his hand, picked up the sword, and sent a trace of sword energy into it. Shing! A sword hum sounded out as the flying sword gave off an intense sword light and continuously trembled, as if it was excited by the terrifying sword energy. Gania's eyes narrowed, and he could not help but say, "This sword actually has a life of its own, and it's different from ordinary swords. It's more like a sword-shaped creature." Zhao Fu lightly laughed. "This is the result of Qin's research, and it's going to be put to use. I called you here because of this." Gunia looked at Zhao Fu and said respectfully, "Please tell me, Your Majesty, this lowly subject will immediately do as you say." Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "I want you to nurture an army of sword cultivators. As a sword cultivator, you should understand how sword cultivators cultivate and who has the talent to become a sword cultivator. I'll leave all of this to you. At the same time, not only do I want a large number of sword cultivators, but I also need some powerful sword cultivators. I hope that you can do this. If you have any requests, you can finally see. He will fulfill all of your requests." Gunia nodded. "This lowly subject understands, and I won't disappoint Your Majesty." Zhao Fu gave a satisfied smile and said, "All right, there's nothing else for you to do, so you can go and do it now." Following this, Gunia went to find Li Si and made an announcement to all of Qin, announcing the start of the sword cultivator aptitude test. He also asked the sword sex people to go and help. As sword cultivators, they naturally knew how to judge aptitude. Sword cultivators had to like swords, or else no matter how high their aptitude was, they would not be able to become powerful swordsmen. As such, most of the people who participated in the sword cultivator aptitude test were people who loved swords, and they were quite young. Chapter 1788. After everything was prepared, Qin started to nurture the flying swords. He first found a very large flat area and set up 2 magic formations. One was a spirit gathering formation, which absorbed the surrounding spirit force for the 5 elemental sword embryos to absorb spirit force. The other was the soul splitting formation, which was to split a complete soul into different parts and infuse it into the 5 elemental sword embryos. These 2 magic formations were the first things to be set up, and they were the most basic things. They covered a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers and were quite large. Next was the 5 elemental sword embryos. Qin had collected the most ordinary 5 elemental materials, and because there were a lot of them, it didn't matter how he used them. In other words, there were the following 5 materials: black iron essence, wood root copper, water, ore, firestone steel, and earth spirit oregon. They were all metals, but they contained the power of the 5 elements, which were metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. After collecting the 5 materials, Blacksmith Qin and the Talisman Master had something to do. They followed Zhao Fu's orders and fused the 5 types of metals to create a 2.5-meter tall and 30 centimeters wide large sword. They also had to leave a sword-shaped hole inside the large sword that led out from the hilt, and one could see the inside of the sword from a hilt. The Talisman Master also engraved countless runes on the swords, making them look mighty and domineering and mysterious. These were the 5 elemental sword embryos, and they weren't single-use items. In other words, they wouldn't become useless after nurturing one flying sword, and they could be nurtured repeatedly. As time passed, these sword embryos would also have terrifying power. Zhao Fu first ordered people to insert the 5 elemental sword embryos into the ground. The 2.5-meter-long swords were inserted 2 meters into the ground, leaving only half a meter outside, which was the hilt. Massive swords were stabbed into the ground, and they gave off a powerful and formless sword aura, causing the air to become heavy and the heavens and earth to change colors. This scene was quite shocking. Zhao Fu's eyes lit up as he looked at Zhao Fu. However, these were just preparatory work, and the nurturing of the flying swords had not yet officially begun. Groups of people followed Zhao Fu's orders and poured in some metal liquids. The metal liquids were liquids that had been melted by high temperatures, and they gave off a faint light and were extremely hot. This metallic liquid was the product of materials from the alchemy world and the Heaven Awakened world. The metal liquid was poured into the sword through the hole in the sword hilt. It didn't need to be filled to the brim, just enough to fill up the sword. Next, Zhao Fu activated the gathering magic array, and a massive magic array appeared from the ground. A massive suction force spread out, and a vast amount of spiritual energy in the surroundings gathered together to form a mist, which then surged in like a tidal wave. The countless runes on the sword stabbed into the ground lit up and gave off sword light as a terrifying sword energy spread out. The liquid metal that had been poured into the sword had not cooled yet, but the sword gave off a powerful sword energy that continuously seeped into the liquid metal and changed it. Under the powerful sword energy's changes, the liquid metal quickly condensed into a hiltless sword. The sword continuously absorbed sword energy, and now countless flying swords were being nurtured. Finally, there was one thing missing, which was a soul. This was the spirituality that the flying swords lacked. Boom! An explosion once again sounded out as a massive gray magic array, giving off a cold and eerie aura spread out. The yin-chi in the surroundings also started to swirl, and the temperature in the surroundings started to fall. Bring those people here. Zhao Fu looked at the massive magic array and gave a trace of a smile as he gave the order to a soldier next to him. The soldier obeyed, and a few thousand people, whose hands were tied up and who looked terrified or furious, were brought to the center of the magic array by Qin's soldiers, where Zhao Fu was standing. A valiant-looking young man looked furious as he struggled and shouted at Qin's soldiers, "Let go of me and have a fair duel. Even if I die, I'm willing. Please don't kill me. I really regret it. I shouldn't have insulted Qin's soldiers. Please give me another chance." An elderly man cried out to Qin's soldiers, his face filled with terror. "Great Qin's people are all bastards and scum. You'll suffer retribution sooner or later." A young woman cursed with a hateful look on her face. "Don't kill me. Why do you want to kill me? Tell me what I've done wrong, and I'll definitely change." A skinny and weak-looking young man pleaded with Qin's soldiers, his eyes filled with terror. Some of these people were unwilling to submit and had intense hatred. Some had committed crimes, and some were relatives of despicable criminals. Some had been captured from other regions. There were all sorts of people. What followed was a massacre. Those people were lined up and kneeling on the ground, with soldiers holding sabers standing next to them. Under Zhao Fu's orders, they raised their sabers and swung down, chopping off a head, causing blood to continuously flow out. Heads flew into the air and rolled to the ground. The headless corpses also fell, dyeing the ground red. At that moment, a massive wave of yin energy covered the corpses, and images floated out from the corpses. They looked just like the corpses, and these were the so-called souls. Countless souls were pulled out from the corpses by the massive yin energy, and the gray magic array on the ground gave off rays of cold light that slashed towards those souls. The countless souls' pitiful cries sounded out, and it was incredibly ear-piercing, as if they were in hell. The rays of cold light cut the countless souls into countless pieces, which floated in the air. The massive gray magic array on the ground once again gave off a suction force, and the countless soul pieces were sucked in. Following this, the gray magic array sent the soul pieces into the large swords. After the souls were sent into the swords, powerful sword energy seeped into them, clearing away all of their memories and impurities, leaving behind only their soul energy. Under the control of the large swords, traces of soul energy flowed into the flying swords. Now, the most important thing was to wait. If you wanted to nurture a flying sword, He definitely had to wait for a long time. In the end, Zhao Fu did not fuse the soldier's blood into the flying swords, as it was quite troublesome. Even though it could increase the flying sword's control, it required a different sword embryo, and if it was destroyed, it would have to be nurtured again. Chapter 1789. Soon, Qin received news that the alchemy world was once again attacking Qin. After hearing about this, Zhao Fu's expression became serious because this was the third time the alchemy world had attacked, and they were even more ferocious this time. Zhao Fu took Qin's soldiers and quickly headed to the alchemy world. After coming to the city walls, the soldiers were already making preparations, continuously strengthening the defensive restrictions and carrying out all sorts of military equipment. Their expressions were serious, and they did not dare to be careless at all. After experiencing 2 battles against the alchemy world, they understood just how terrifying the alchemist race was. Moreover, after 2 battles, Qin had perfected its defensive measures and had dug out a defensive zone. Bai Qi, how many alchemist soldiers are attacking this time? Zhao Fu looked ahead and asked Bai Qi seriously. Hearing this, Bai Qi replied seriously, there are twice as many alchemist soldiers this time, and there are 2 billion alchemist soldiers. I heard that the number of war beasts has greatly increased as well. Zhao Fu felt a headache coming on. Qin only had 4 billion or so stage 2 soldiers, and 5 billion of them had been sent here. If the alchemy world's soldiers continued to increase, Qin would not have enough soldiers to deal with them. Rumble! Before Zhao Fu could think of what to do, a massive explosion sounded out, causing the ground to tremble. A terrifying aura spread out, causing the air to become cold and oppressive. Alchemist soldiers flooded out from the ground, as well as massive war beasts. They gave off a metallic and austere aura, making it seem as if nothing could stop them. This time, the alchemist army had gathered even more alchemist factions, and it was not just Flame Ghost who was leading them. Another large faction had joined, and its status and power were not any weaker than Flame Ghost's faction. This person was a coldly arrogant young man called Bing Han. Now, the entire army was led by the 2 of them. The alchemist army was even more confident. With 2 billion alchemist soldiers and 5,000 war beasts, they had enough strength to destroy everything. They had come to take revenge for the Heaven Awakened world base and destroy it. The alchemy army soon arrived in front of Qin with a strong and cold aura. On Qin's side, 2 billion soldiers were guarding the city walls, and 500 million soldiers were left inside the encampment to prevent any accidents. Qin had learned a lesson last time. If it weren't for the army that stayed behind, Qin's encampment might have been breached. The 2 armies faced off against each other, causing the air to become heavy. It was even more austere and could be felt even from far away. Bing Han and Flame Gui led the leaders of the various factions and stood in the sky. Flame Gui looked at Zhao Fu furiously. Last time, he had almost died here and returned in defeat. He had been ridiculed by others, and this time, he was going to use Great Qin's blood to wash away this humiliation. An icy gaze looked at Zhao Fu with a trace of coldness and arrogance. Your faction is not bad. You blocked 2 attacks from the alchemy world and were not destroyed. You should be proud of this. Zhao Fu looked at Zhao Fu with an icy gaze and said with a trace of arrogance, your faction is not bad. However, this time, you will definitely lose. With me around, the Heaven Awakened world will lose sooner or later. Why don't you submit to me first? After the alchemy world devours the Heaven Awakened world, you will also receive great benefits. Of course, you might be afraid of the Heaven Awakened world's punishment, but you don't need to worry. The alchemy world has the ability to avoid punishment. Submitting to me is your best choice. Moreover, seeing that your factions are quite strong, I'm willing to subdue you. This is an honor for you Heaven Awakened world people. Ordinary factions do not have such an honor. After hearing Isan's words, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. The alchemy world could avoid punishment for traitors? Wasn't this just luring people from the Heaven Awakened world to surrender? Moreover, the alchemy world was dominated by people unlike the outer world, which was dominated by insects. Those insects had low intelligence and would kill anyone they saw. If you submitted, you would still die in the end. Zhao Fu naturally did not like Icy Han's words, and he would not submit to him. He coldly laughed as he said, "It's hard to say whether you'll win or lose. It's possible that your head will be hung on the city walls tomorrow." Icy Han coldly looked at Zhao Fu, a trace of killing intent appearing in his heart. Beside him, Flame Ghost said, "I said before that that boy is incredibly arrogant and domineering and will not surrender. It's better to attack and destroy this faction, capture that boy, and torture him." Icy Han did not say anything else, and immediately gave the order to attack. It was the same as before, to use the War Saint Beasts to suppress them. The War Saint Beasts aimed their massive cannons at Qin city walls. Countless rays of light shot out from the cannons, and an extremely dangerous aura spread out. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying beams of light containing destructive power shot out like bolts of lightning towards Qin city walls. No one could stop them, and the beams of light pierced through the sky incredibly quickly. Facing this wave of attacks, Great Qin did not hesitate and activated its defensive barrier. A massive black energy barrier giving off a firm and powerful aura appeared. Bang! Bang! Massive sounds sounded out as the terrifying beams of light quickly hit the defensive barrier, causing countless cracks to appear on it. Even more beams of light containing terrifying power continued to hit the defensive barrier. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the massive defensive barrier was shattered by the War Saint Beasts. Even though Qin continuously strengthened the defensive barrier, the enemy's War Saint Beasts continuously increased in numbers. Kill! The countless soldiers roared and gave off ferocious auras as they charged at Qin, seeming to want to destroy everything. The people at the very front were still holding long spears in their hands. Borrowing the momentum of their charge, they forcefully threw the long spears out. The city walls gave off immense power as they shot out and disappeared into the air. Magic formations appeared, and alchemy power continuously gathered in the surroundings as the alchemy formations gave off intense light. Swish, 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 spears containing terrifying power shot out from the magic formation. They were densely packed and seemed to be extremely well practiced, and they descended like a torrential rain. On Qin's side, the shield bearers once again went up and formed a shield wall that gave off black light, forming a black barrier that blocked the countless spears. The echelon builders once again walked out and pressed their metal-gloved hands against the ground as alchemy formations appeared. Countless traces of alchemy power gathered as metal stairs quickly stretched out from the ground towards the city walls. Chapter 1790. However, facing the soldiers' ferocious attacks, Qin's side seemed much calmer and did not seem to be in a rush to respond. This made the leaders feel quite surprised. Why were the soldiers attacking while Qin's side did not react at all? They felt that something was off and wanted to tell the soldiers to be more careful. Boom! A massive black magic formation floated out of Great Qin's residence, and a chaotic and destructive power flowed out and spread out. Countless people looked quite confused as they watched the metal stairs start to disintegrate and turn into metal powder. Soon, the metal stairs completely disintegrated. At first, the metal stairs had been quite shocking, but now that they had disintegrated, the people on them fell to the ground like rain. This scene was incredibly shocking. Swish, 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 as many people fell to the ground and were unable to get up, Qin's side shot out arrows. The arrows contained immense force as they flew out, leaving behind black blurs as they descended like a torrential rain. Arc. The soldiers on the ground were unable to resist at all, and their bodies were pierced by the arrows. Blood flew everywhere as countless cries sounded out, and it was unknown just how many people had died. That magic formation was a massive outer world magic formation, and it had used up many crystals containing chaos energy. Otherwise, it would not have been able to release such intense chaos energy in the outer world. However, not too long after this magic formation appeared, it stopped. After all, the outer world suppressed the heaven-awakened world by quite a bit. Moreover, the main goal was to make it so that the metal stairs could not be used, making it more difficult for the enemy to attack. Seeing the countless casualties of the refiner soldiers, the leaders of the various factions felt a trace of anger, and they all ordered the war Saint Beasts to attack. Boom! Boom! Terrifying rays of light containing terrifying power and shocking auras shot toward Sheen's city walls. On Sheen's side, there was no defensive barrier, and 100-meter-tall holy light emissaries giving off intense holy light auras appeared. They stretched out their hands, and a powerful aura spread out. White defensive barriers giving off intense holy light energy appeared on the city walls, covering countless Sheen soldiers. Bang! 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 However, the power of the beams of light was astonishing. Some of them pierced right through the white barrier, creating a large hole in the holy light emissary's body. The holy light emissary's body immediately turned into countless motes of light and dissipated. Some of the beams of light landed on the city walls, resulting in explosions. Countless soldiers' bodies exploded, causing blood to fly everywhere, and pained cries sounded out. On the alchemy world side, the ladder builders once again placed their hands on the ground, and alchemy arrays appeared one after another. The surrounding alchemy power was also quickly gathering. However, a primal chaos magic formation once again appeared on Great Sheen's side, and a wave of primal chaos power spread to the ground, causing the alchemy formations to dim. The surrounding alchemy power was unable to gather, making it impossible to construct the metal stairs. This surprised the alchemists. They hadn't expected such a thing to happen. Building metal stairs was the most common way to attack a city in the alchemy world. Now that this method was restrained, the many alchemy soldiers could only rush towards the city wall of Sheen City on the ground. Bang! 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 Loud sounds rang out again. As mentioned before, Sheen had secretly dug a defensive belt. This defensive belt had a width of dozens of meters and a depth of hundreds of meters. It was also filled with many steel thorns, each shining with a cold light and extremely sharp. Now, the ground collapsed, and countless alchemy soldiers fell. Their bodies were pierced by the steel thorns, and screams rang out. This caused the originally ferocious army of alchemy soldiers to stop. However, it didn't stop them for long. They immediately gathered their strength, smashed the ground, and filled the trenches that they had dug out. Then, they continued to rush towards Sheen. Whoosh! 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 Sheen's side shot out countless arrows at once. With a series of air-piercing sounds, the countless arrows fell with great force. Some alchemy soldiers raised their metal shields to block the arrows, while others waved their mechanical arms or weapons to block the arrows. There were also some who had their bodies pierced by the arrows. Blood splattered everywhere, and they let out pained screams. Some died on the spot. The alchemy army continued to ferociously charge towards the city walls. Seeing how ferocious the army was, the various alchemy leaders grinned and had their Saint War beasts aim at Sheen city walls, providing great assistance to the alchemy army. Countless cannons pointed at Sheen's city walls, and countless rays of light spread out from within the cannons as a dangerous aura spread out. Zhao Fu's expression was cold. If he allowed these Saint War beasts to fire another wave of attacks, Sheen's city walls would suffer great losses. Moreover, Zhao Fu had long since detested these Saint War beasts, and they would always put Sheen under great pressure and danger. Zhao Fu didn't hesitate to order people to bring out 10 or so meter-long dragon-slaying ballistae. There were 1,200 or so of them. There were arrows as thick as a child's arm on top of them, and they were covered with runes. There were also different disaster pearls embedded within the arrows. Boom, boom, boom. The massive arrows flew out, and the disaster pearls at the center of the arrows were activated, giving off different kinds of lights. The countless runes on the arrows flickered, and the entire arrows gave off different kinds of lights. Some were wrapped in countless bolts of lightning, giving off the aura of lightning. Some were wrapped in flames, giving off a scorching aura. Some were wrapped in ice, giving off an icy chill. Some were wrapped in a metallic aura, giving off a sharp aura. These arrows gave off terrifying power and seemed unstoppable as they shot towards the Saint War beasts. They were incredibly fast, and they left behind different colored rays of light. Facing so many terrifying arrows, the Saint War beasts stopped attacking. Their bodies gave off a metallic light as powerful and firm defensive barriers appeared around them. Bang, bang, bang. However, the arrows gave off immense power as they pierced through the defensive barriers and hit the Saint War beasts. The disaster pearls at the center of the arrows stabbed into the War Saint beasts gave off a brilliant light, and a terrifying power spread out. An arrow gave off a sand-like power, and the 1,000-meter-long Saint War beast's tough mechanical bodies started to crumble like sand. Soon, the 1,000-meter-long Saint War beast completely turned into sand. Chapter 1791. Some of the arrows gave off boundless flames, and a searing heat spread out. The 1,000-meter-long Saint War beasts started to melt under the flames, and the people within them were burned to death. Some of the arrows gave off countless azure wind blades that were like massive blades, cutting the Saint War beast's tough mechanical bodies into countless pieces. Ear-piercing sounds rang out, and the people on them were also cut into countless pieces. Some of the arrows gave off countless bolts of lightning, and the lightning bolts were like silver snakes that smashed into the Saint War beast bodies. The Saint War beasts' bodies twisted and even shattered, and the people on them were electrocuted into charred corpses. Countless artisan race people were shocked. The artisan race's powerful killing machines, the Saint War beasts that they were so proud of, had been destroyed so easily. Each Saint War beast was the blood and sweat of countless families. This caused them to feel both furious and shocked. Just what kind of power did those arrows have to destroy the Saint War beasts so easily? The 5,000 or so Saint War beasts had suffered this wave of attacks, and 2,000 of them had died. Now, there were only 3,000 or so Saint War beasts left. This was a heavy blow to the Saint War beasts. Seeing this scene, Zhao Fu gave a big smile. This was the Disaster Pearl's power, and it also helped him vent some of his resentment. He had been suppressed by the Saint War beasts this entire time, and he had often been at a disadvantage. Roar, roar, roar. Suddenly, massive beast roars sounded out, and the ground continuously trembled as massive creatures giving off ferocious auras rushed towards Qin City. There were creatures that looked like dogs, and their bodies had become mechanical. They were 1,000 meters long and had black crystal-like eyes, savage fangs, and long tails. From their auras, these creatures were Saint War beasts, but they were different from ordinary Saint War beasts. These Saint War beasts were incredibly fast and agile. Soon, these Saint War beasts reached the vicinity of Qin City's city walls. Some of them vigorously swiped with their claws, and a massive power tore apart the bodies of Qin City soldiers. Even raising their shields was useless, and they all died in the end. Some Saint War beasts opened their mouths and bit at the Qin City soldiers on the city walls. Facing such terrifying Saint War beasts, ordinary soldiers were unable to resist at all, and blood continuously sprayed out as pitiful cries continuously sounded out. Some of the War Saint beasts savagely rammed into the city walls, causing the city walls to tremble. Soon, cracks appeared on the city walls. The countless metal refiner soldiers gave off terrifying auras as they charged towards Qin City's city walls. The situation was incredibly dire. At this time, Zhao Fu couldn't care too much about anything else. He sent out countless ice-fire wyverns, numbering in the tens of thousands. This was because there weren't many war-holy beasts attacking, only a few hundred of them. Roar! The ice-fire wyverns flew in the sky and gave off massive dragons' might as they spat out powerful icy blasts and flames towards the War Saint beast on the ground, causing the war saint beast to furiously turn towards the ice fire wyverns. The battle was quite intense. There weren't many war saint beasts, but each of them was 1,000 meters long. If wyverns got close, they would attack with their claws, and some would leap up and bite at them. Some wyverns were sent flying if they weren't careful. Some were even bitten by the war beasts, causing them to let out pained cries and be heavily injured. There were also some war beasts that shot out massive beams of light from their mouths. The terrifying power sent wyverns flying, causing them to fall from the sky and die. These war saint beasts were incredibly ferocious, but there were many wyverns on Sheen City's side. They continuously shot out flames and icy blasts, freezing or melting the war saint beast's mechanical bodies. There were also close-range attacks. 10 or so wyverns leapt onto a war saint beast and tore at it, tearing it apart. These war saint beasts were all mechanical and did not feel any pain, and they furiously retaliated. The metal refiner world side was quite shocked. They had never thought that Sheen City would have so many ice fire wyverns. They immediately gave the order for the remaining 3,000 or so war saint beasts to aim their massive cannons at Sheen City's city walls. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying beams of light containing immense power shot out, causing intense gales to blow. The sounds were quite terrifying. On Sheen City's side, the holy light emissaries gave off intense holy light auras as they stretched out their hands, causing white energy barriers to appear. Bang! Bang! Explosions sounded out as the beams of light with terrifying power slammed against the white barrier, causing it to tremble. However, it was able to block most of the beams of light. Now that the war saint beast numbers had decreased, the power of their attacks had also greatly decreased. Kill! By now, the metal refiner soldiers had rushed to the city walls. Some people brought out ladders, some used flying locks, and some started to scale the city walls as they started to attack. Great Sheen continuously counterattacked, continuously shooting out arrows and using heavy objects to smash the soldiers, killing some of them or killing them. The metal refiner soldiers also shot out arrows and attacked Sheen City soldiers. The battle was incredibly intense, and the sounds of battle were deafening. Countless amounts of blood flew everywhere, and corpses continuously increased, covering the ground. Boom! 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 The War Saint Beast cannons once again aimed at the city walls, and once again shot out terrifying beams of light that quickly shot towards Sheen City. Boom! 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 Countless holy light emissaries stretched out their hands towards the War Saint Beasts, and searing beams of light containing shocking power shot towards the War Saint Beasts. Bang! 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 Explosions sounded out as the beams of light quickly collided, resulting in massive explosions. Shock waves blasted out, causing the ground to continuously crack and countless rocks to fly everywhere. At that moment, Fire Gouet once again saw that the battle was going against him, so he carefully took out a 3-meter wide metal orb and vigorously threw it. The metal orb turned into a black blur as it shot towards the city walls. Seeing that the metal orb was flying towards the city walls, Zhao Fu's heart tightened. He understood how destructive this metal orb was. The 3-meter wide metal orb was about to smash into the city walls, and metal refiner runes lit up as an extremely terrifying aura spread out, causing the surroundings to become icy cold. Seeing that the metal orb was about to explode, Zhao Fu immediately called out, "Yu Ling!" Yu Ling immediately appeared beside Zhao Fu and stretched out a small hand, causing spatial energy to spread out and cover the metal orb. Chapter 1792. Seeing that the metal ball was about to explode, Zhao Fu decided to let the alchemist army bear the terrifying destructive power. However, at that moment, the metal ball seemed to have a mind of its own. It sensed that there were many of its own people around it, and it seemed to be trying its best to control itself, which was about to explode. However, countless rays of light shot out, and it was unable to control itself, and it directly flew into the sky. Bang! A shocking explosion sounded out as the metal ball gave off a massive explosion. Countless rays of blinding white light spread out, causing the heavens and earth to turn white. A terrifying shockwave spread out, turning the surrounding clouds into nothingness, and an even greater storm swept out in all directions. Flame Ghost's expression was quite unsightly. He knew that the metal ball had the ability to identify its own people, and it would not explode unless there was an accident. He was not too worried about this. The reason why his expression was unsightly was that the metal ball was incredibly precious and difficult to make. However, he had never thought that the metal ball that had been flying towards Sheen City would be diverted to the alchemist side by spatial power, wasting it just like that. Zhao Fu also looked quite surprised. He had never thought that the metal ball would have such an ability, and he had underestimated it. Kill! By now, the alchemist soldiers had also attacked the city walls and started a fight with Sheen City soldiers. A soldier sent a Sheen City soldier flying with a punch. A soldier killed a Sheen City soldier with a saber, and a soldier pierced through a Sheen City soldier with a spear. A great Sheen soldier slashed out with his sword, sending out a sword light that sliced off the head of a great Sheen soldier. A great Sheen soldier slashed out with his axe, splitting a great Sheen soldier in half, and a great Sheen soldier smashed a great Sheen soldier with his hammer and sent a great Sheen soldier flying. Blood continuously flew everywhere, and pitiful cries continuously sounded out. The battle was incredibly intense, and more people died. Because there were 2 billion people on Sheen City's city walls, they had a great advantage in numbers. As such, they were able to successfully suppress the attacking alchemist soldiers. At that moment, Aishan coldly harumphed and took out a fist-sized mechanical eyeball. He cut his palm and let blood flow out, and the mechanical eyeball continuously absorbed the blood and gave off an intense, icy light. The mechanical eyeball began to rise into the sky, and a large amount of alchemy power poured into it. The metal eyeball absorbed a large amount of alchemy power, and its body kept growing until it became a 10,000-meter-long eyeball. The eyeball was icy, and its pupils were silver. There were circles of runes around the eyeball, and they gave off a terrifying coldness. The surrounding temperature quickly fell, and it started to freeze. Icy clouds condensed in the sky. Bing Han raised a hand, and a powerful wave of power entered his hand, causing it to give off an icy light. The massive eyeball in the sky exploded out with an icy aura. His eyes seemed to have a mind of their own as they looked at the city walls of Sheen. Boom! A rumbling sound echoed as the surrounding alchemy power kept pouring in. The eyeball emitted an intense, icy light, and the circles of runes started revolving, emitting an extremely cold aura. The cold air was extremely cold. The eyeball emitted countless icy lights as it stared at Sheen's city wall. The city walls of Sheen's city wall started to freeze, and the temperature plummeted. The surrounding soldiers hurriedly raised their shields and blocked in front of them. A massive wave of power flowed into the shields, causing them to give off a black light and form a massive black barrier of light that blocked the city walls of Sheen City Wall. However, it was useless. The black barrier of light quickly froze, and the soldiers felt an extreme coldness as they watched in terror as their bodies started to freeze. Wherever the massive, icy eyeball looked, nothing could stop it, and everything started to freeze. One side of the city walls of Sheen's city wall was now covered with a thick layer of ice. Not a single one of Sheen's soldiers was able to escape, and they were all frozen. They stood there like ice sculptures, and it was unknown just how many soldiers had died. The massive, icy eyeball slowly moved its gaze towards other parts of the city walls of Sheen City Wall, and those places also quickly froze. The other alchemist soldiers roared and gave off massive auras as they charged towards the Great Wall, wanting to break through Sheen's defenses. This is the power of our Bing family. I already said that you won't win. Now kneel in front of me and beg for mercy. Maybe I can take you as my dog. Zhao Fu immediately shouted with a trace of anger. Hurry up and stop that eyeball. Moji nodded solemnly, and her body dissipated into countless traces of demonic chi. In the next second, countless traces of demonic chi gathered, and Dimoji's body once again appeared near the ice. However, because of the lesson from last time, the leaders of the various factions were standing on a 10,000-meter-long war saint beast. As soon as Dimoji appeared, before she could even attack, the war saint beast sensed her and aimed its cannons at her. Boom, boom, boom! Rays of powerful light containing destructive power and shocking auras shot towards Dimoji. There were simply too many of them, and Dimoji was unable to dodge it all. As such, she could only choose to defend. A black demonic chi barrier appeared around her as she escaped. Bang! Despite doing this, Dimoji was able to dodge many of the rays of light, but she was still hit by some. Her body flew backwards and heavily crashed to the ground, opening up a large crater, and a trace of blood leaked out of her mouth. However, in the next second, two figures suddenly appeared near the ice. It was Zhao Fu and Yu Ling. Zhao Fu held Yu Ling's hand with one hand and held the Emperor Killing Sword with the other, using Yu Ling's spatial abilities to teleport here. The War Saint Beast had just attacked Dimoji, and the other War Saint Beast had not reacted yet. No one had expected Zhao Fu to silently appear here. After appearing, Zhao Fu did not hesitate to send a massive amount of power into his sword, causing a sharp sword intent to spread out. He vigorously slashed out, sending out a terrifying sword light that slashed towards the icy figure. The ice looked quite confused and could not react in time. His body was split in half and blood sprayed everywhere as he died on the spot. The massive eyeball in the sky directly shattered into countless pieces of ice and fell from the sky. It seemed that it could only be used once. Suddenly, Zhao Fu, who had just killed the ice, felt an intense sense of danger, and the two War Saint Beast cannons were now aimed at Zhao Fu. "Hurry and leave." Zhao Fu hurriedly said to Yu Ling. Yu Ling grabbed Zhao Fu's hand, and a spatial energy formed an orb around the two of them, following which they disappeared. Boom, boom, boom! Terrifying rays of light containing shocking power shot out, seeming to pierce through space as terrifying ripples spread out. Chapter 1793. Seeing that Yu Ling had been injured, Zhao Fu's expression fell and understood that it had been caused by the Holy Beast's attack. He stretched out his hand and sent some of his power into Yu Ling's body to help him stabilize his injuries. Yu Ling obediently smiled and said, "Your Majesty, I wasn't injured too badly. I didn't suffer any serious injuries. I'm fine now." Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Looking at the young Yu Ling, he had him rest and continue to recover. Perhaps he would be needed later. Without the suppression of the eyesight, the gold refiners were at a great disadvantage. Qin soldiers used this opportunity to launch even more ferocious attacks against the gold refiner soldiers, and sharp arrows continuously flew over. Blood flew everywhere as pitiful cries continuously sounded out. The gold refiner soldiers continuously suffered more and more casualties. The battle between the Swift Saint War Beasts and the Wyverns was just as intense. 10 or so Wyverns surrounded a Saint War Beast and spewed out icy flames, while others leapt down and bit or clawed at the Saint War Beast. Facing the attacks of the Ice-Fire Wyverns, even though the Saint War Beasts did their best to counterattack, they continuously suffered more and more casualties. Bang! 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 On the other side, the Saint War Beasts and the Holy Light Emissaries were also clashing, and terrifying rays of light continuously shot out. Explosions continuously sounded out, creating intense storms. Seeing this, the Gold Refiner army could not help but sigh. They could not break through Qin's defenses again, nor could they continue to suffer casualties. In the end, the Gold Refiner world once again gave the order to retreat. After receiving the order, the gold refiner soldiers started to retreat and inwardly let out sighs of relief. They understood how difficult this battle had been, and none of the Qin soldiers were weak. Looking at Ice Han, who had been cut in half, Flame Ghost felt quite afraid. Luckily, that person had not attacked him, or else he would have ended up like Ice Han. However, because he had once again lost to Qin, Flame Ghost felt even more furious. He had thought of all sorts of ways to kill Zhao Fu, but in the end he was still on his side. The Qin Empire was not an ordinary faction. Flame Ghost looked at Zhao Fu and furiously yelled, "Boy, I'll come again. I will come again next time, and it will be the time of your death. I will slaughter all the people in Qin and pile up their heads into a mountain." Zhao Fu replied coldly, "You'll know when you try next time. But before that, you'd better save your life." Hearing this, Flame Ghost became even angrier, but he coldly harumphed and did not say anything else because he wanted to wait for the next chance to take revenge. Moreover, he understood that Zhao Fu had Emperor Heaven Realm experts under his command. If he charged over by himself, he would die at the hands of that Emperor Heaven Realm expert. However, that Emperor Heaven Realm expert was quite beautiful and was one of the rarest beauties in the world. If he could kill Zhao Fu and enjoy that Emperor Heaven Realm expert, how great would that be? Zhao Fu heaved a sigh of relief as he watched the entire army of alchemist soldiers retreat. The 500 million soldiers that had stayed behind had not been used yet, so their overall strength had not been revealed. Next time, the alchemist world attacks would be even more ferocious, and the pressure that Qin would have to bear would be even greater. Zhao Fu ordered people to clean up the battlefield and strengthen the defenses before returning to the Qin Empire. Zhao Fu immediately went to the research lab and asked Bai Shan, how was the research on the weaknesses of alchemist soldiers going? Bai Shan's expression was quite unsightly as he replied, "Your Majesty, we've made some progress, but it's not very effective." Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed, but there was nothing he could do about it. Following this, Zhao Fu returned to the Qin Empire and asked Li Si if he had found a large number of items containing time energy. Now, Qin was under more and more pressure, and he had to quickly obtain enough power to resist the alchemist race. They had been able to resist this time, but Zhao Fu did not have much confidence in the next few times. Who knew what the alchemist race had up their sleeves? However, Li Si looked quite apologetic as he reported, "Your Majesty, right now, Qin is already searching for items containing time energy, but they've only obtained a small amount of information and are not very useful." Zhao Fu sighed and had Li Si leave as he continued to speed up the search. After Li Si left, Zhao Fu sat on the throne by himself and thought about what to do next. The other battlefield was still quite stable, but the alchemist world was the biggest headache. As long as it was not resolved, Zhao Fu would not be able to rest easy. Boom! Suddenly, a massive explosion sounded out, and Zhao Fu looked quite startled. He did not know what had happened, and he went outside the palace. In the distance, a massive pillar of Inchi shot into the sky with shocking power and crashed into the sky, causing the sky to tremble. Massive amounts of Inchi gathered into dark clouds and quickly spread out in all directions. A massive wave of Inchi and cold aura flowed in all directions, and a gust of In wind blew, causing people's hairs to stand on end. That direction seemed to be where Qin's ghost soldiers were being converted. What had happened? Feeling quite confused, Zhao Fu turned into a ray of light and shot towards where ghost soldiers were being converted. Arc! Before he came close, Zhao Fu heard countless terrifying howls. There were humans and beasts, and the sounds were incredibly terrifying. When Zhao Fu came to where ghost soldiers were being converted, he saw that the sky was filled with terrifying ghosts. There were males and females, young and old, and there were also all sorts of beasts. However, they all had one thing in common. Their bodies were covered with gray scales, and their eyes did not have pupils, only the whites of their eyes. They looked quite savage. There were so many terrifying monsters flying in the sky, giving off shocking ghostly power as they howled. The scene was incredibly terrifying and shocking. Zhao Fu recognized all of these ghosts because they were the Yin soul beasts that Qin had nurtured. This was a method of nurturing Yin soul beasts that Zhao Fu had obtained from the Ghost Spirit Empire historical remnant in the underworld. It was an incredibly powerful method. Soul beasts could not only be used as ghostly beasts to help their master attack enemies, but they could also be fused into soldiers' bodies to increase their strength. However, there was a flaw, which was that they could only be used by ghost soldiers. Back then, when Zhao Fu had nurtured some Soul beasts, he had ordered people to nurture them in large numbers. They had increased from 10,000 to 100 million, and the area of the underworld had been expanded by many times. Now, there were massive pots on the ground, and they were arranged in an orderly manner. At a glance, they could be seen everywhere. All of them continuously gave off Shi and gave off an ominous aura, as well as powerful resentment energy. After all, the method of nurturing Soul beasts was quite cruel. It was to tie up people and put them in massive pots before filling them with soil and burying them alive. Those people would slowly suffocate and die with immense resentment energy. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.